Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You'll call the roll.
Councillor Smith? Here. Councillor Truck? Here. Councillor Zeid? Here. Councillor Callahan?
Here.
Councillor Cameron?
Here.
Councillor Delay?
Here.
Councillor Hall?
Here.
Councillor Harmon?
Here.
Councillor Khan?
Present.
Councillor Nikotich?
Here.
Councillor Shan?
Present.
11 present.
Public comment. I will open up public comment as soon as Clerk Sullivan walks back up. If there are any hands online who'd like to speak, please raise them now. All right, seeing no online hands, we will do public comment in person, and we have one person here, and it is Mike Leonard. Mr. Leonard, name and address, item on the agenda.
Mike Leonard, 13 Ting Street. Good evening. I'm commenting on Order 851 water sewer rates. As I've said before, I think the information that's provided to the council ahead of its vote should contain the average customer total projected bill for the year for water sewer. It's not in the packet you have tonight, and I've not seen it totaled and so labeled in other presentations. Number two, the proposed rate increase looks to translate to an overall 7.5% year-over-year increase in the average bill by my own calculation. That would be the second highest year-over-year increase in the past 11 fiscal years, topped only by 8% in fiscal year 19. I offer that in light of the proposed increases in the fixed customer charges for water and sewer, which were discussed at the most recent Budget and Finance Committee meeting, so you'd be going up from 7.5. Third point, the underlying assumption of that average bill calculation uses 137 gallons of water a day, according to the 2022 study by ENV Partners. For those of you who pay your water bills by the WaterSmart online system, you might notice much higher numbers. I'm wondering, how am I so out of line with 137? I just looked at the last 9 quarters, ending the billing cycle that ends this Wednesday. WaterSmart shows the average household uses 233 gallons a day. The most efficient subset uses an average of 177 gallons a day. Why the disconnect between the 137 used for the bill calculation and that WaterSmart information? It's something worth exploring. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. And that is it for public comment. Late files.
There's one late file this evening. It's Ordinance 226, a zoning ordinance to reduce overall height allowances.
Motion to waive the rules and receive the late file. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
And yes, 1 no. All right, Mayor's comment.
Hi, everyone. Before we start, I want to wish a very happy birthday to Council President. Can we sing happy birthday real quick while your sister's here?
That's going to eat into your 7 minutes.
I won't say happy birthday. I hope you have a really great birthday.
Thank you.
We have a really big event coming up this Sunday that I'm really excited about. I think the email went out to all of you today as well. I hope you all can take part. This is the Declaration of Independence reading that's going to take place down in Market Square. We're going to gather here, and then we're going to march down to Market Square for the 2 o'clock reading. And then after that is over, we're going to work our way down to the waterfront. We're going to have 3 tall ships on the waterfront, which is pretty amazing. I was in Boston Harbor last night in a boat and got to take a little tour around and saw a lot of them. So I'm certainly excited for that. And Governor Healy will be joining us as well. So we hope you can make it here on Sunday. Streets and sidewalk work. I know an update just went out from Director Turner, but that's work happening all over across the city this week. Today it started on Ocean Ave, Marquand, Cutters Court, and Griffin Court, and then Wednesday milling will begin on Rawson Ave, Goldsmith, and Mosley Avenue. Any questions, you can certainly reach out to my office or DPS. Hopefully, weather permitting, we'll have all of this work done by the end of the month, which is great. Merrimack River and Plum Island update. I didn't actually get a ton of questions from you over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, it was a difficult few weeks, so we really tried to get as much information out there as possible. We finally opened up the Newburyport side of Plum Island beaches for swimming over the weekend. We really try to take a data-driven approach, and I think after having so many clean tests on the city side, and then actually just kind of more using the Merrimack River Watershed Council data as a reference, we felt like Saturday was the day to open it up. We'll keep an eye on that, and then just knowing that this isn't over, obviously, although it's gotten quiet, which is concerning, so we're going to continue to work with Mass DEP and continue to work with our legal team here at City Hall, and I'll be approaching City Council with any kind of plans moving forward, but we actually have a big meeting about that this week, just talking about our options moving forward around, bigger outdated sewer infrastructure downriver. Whittier Regional Agreement Amendment Committee. So I've missed the last couple of these meetings, but we've got a really good group situated now, so I do get quite a few updates. We've really stalled, so I kind of put an update in your packet. I also included some of the questions that we have voted on as a group. And we do have consensus around a lot of changes, and I'll let you dig into that, and if you have questions, you can certainly reach out. When we started this process, again, to remind everybody, it's all 11 communities taking part in this regional agreement amendment process. We had a charge at the beginning. We're going to have a report, similar to the water ad hoc. We're going to have a report that we're going to send along to the Whittier School Committee with recommendations to the regional agreement. When we started this, we knew we kind of had a stalemate right off the bat. I think the biggest thing, that's the big question mark out there, is the capital cost alignment for Whittier. I think that's what the vote that took place in 2024 was a big indicator of, that people think that the Acts of 1967 should be updated to something a little bit more modern. So when we started that process, we had to know first if Haverhill was going to get on board with wanting to compromise and get something done. Haverhill was very focused on the Northern Essex shared campus model, and we were told at the time that as long as that was the direction we were going in, that they would be open to changing the agreement. And here we are now at the end of it, and they're not willing to change the agreement. So we're pretty much in a stalemate. We had overwhelming support. I think it was out of the 11 communities, the vote was 9-1-1. That was 9 communities voting for a per pupil at Whittier model, again, which obviously would benefit Newburyport. We currently have 26 kids attending Whittier. That means on a project that was $200 million, and that's just kind of the number that's been thrown out there, but let's say it's a $200 million project with hopefully some more money coming from the state. Newburyport's allotment of that would be $21 million for 26 kids. By per pupil, that drops down to under $3 million. So that's kind of where we're at with them. Salisbury abstained when we voted because they wanted to try to come up with a different model. They came back with a 50-50 hybrid model, so half of it would be by the old agreement, half of it would be by per pupil, which helped us, but it still wasn't, I would say widely accepted. And then Haverhill also turned that one down as well. And then there was also a third thing, which I don't know if this was actually talked about the last meeting, because again, I wasn't there, but they actually talked about what if you took Rowley and Newburyport out of it. Now, I've never said that we wanted to leave the district, but they knew that those two communities in particular were pretty adamant about that it should be a per pupil model. And that didn't really go anywhere either. So again, like I said, we're in a little bit of a stalemate. Haverhill is really holding tight to not wanting to change it at all. Especially, I was surprised with them not being willing to look at the 50-50 model. So that's just where we're at. We've got another meeting coming up in a couple weeks, and I'll update you more. I think I sent along a lot of information. There's some other things I can send everyone so they can take a look at it. But to me, I mean, just looking at how that vote went, I don't think anything less than a per pupil model is just not a compromise, and it's not indicative of what that vote really was about. At the end of the day, we don't know where that project is going to land. I mean, I think we threw out that $200 million number, but I honestly think that's probably wishful thinking. I think the state is really sitting back right now and waiting to see when the dust settles from the 11 communities working on the regional agreement. So, like I said, I'll fill you in, but that's where we're at. Happy to answer any questions on it. It's been a very frustrating. We've had some very contentious meetings, some quick meetings, some quiet meetings, and then some really brutal meetings. So. Like I said, the spirit of it, I thought we were going to get to a point that we wanted to get something done. I mean, my message to Haverhill would be, you have 900 kids that go to this school. I mean, do you want it to happen or do you not want it to happen, right? But again, they're paying for 40% of the capital cost right now, so they They don't want to do that. So that's where we are with that. And again, this is just on top of the infrastructure issues that they're having with their sewer down there as well. So both those things will be talked about quite a bit in the next couple of weeks. And lastly, And lastly, just Yankee Homecoming's coming up. I'm not going to talk to you before then, so I hope you all can take part in Yankee Homecoming. The parade is August 2nd. I hope you all can march. Hopefully it's a beautiful day, and there's going to be a lot of good things going on that week, and I hope to see you guys out and about. That's it from me.
Thank you, Mayor.
you.
Questions? Councillor Smith?
On the regional agreement, is there a date by when we need to reach consensus on that for the
Next
MSBA?
June.
Next
Yes.
June.
June 2027 is what the MSBA. So back in June 24th of this year, we actually gave Superintendent Maureen Lynch of Whittier the go-ahead to tell the MSBA that we'd like to move forward with the feasibility study. The feasibility study, at one time, we were going to have to put in some more money from that, but Whittier and Northern Essex was able to come up with the rest of the money, so we're not going to have to put in for that. But we gave them permission to move forward because, again, I think at the end of the day, a lot of us are really excited about the possibility of a partnership with Northern Essex, and we wanted to see what that feasibility study looked like, even though I would say that meeting that we were discussing that, we were a million miles apart as far as coming to an agreement around what's next for the regional agreement. So, So that's moving forward, and then said we have another year. With town meetings and things like that, again, they have two shots at the apple to work on that, so that's why we, hopefully we'll have our report done by the end of this month, at least that was the original plan. This is also interesting because the chair of this committee is Angus McAdam from, I think I'm saying that last name right, from West Newbury. He's the West Newbury town manager, but his last day in West Newbury is at the end of this month, and he moves to Whittier as their new business manager. So, like I said, hopefully we'll finish, get that report off to committee, and just so everyone knows, why Haverhill is able to hold it up is, as of right now, the agreement still calls for a unanimous support to change it, and that's one of the things that if you see in the report that I sent out to you, that they're looking to change that to a 2/3 majority, but as of right now, it's still a majority, so Haverhill can really stick in there if they want to kill the project, which I don't think they want to, but I think they just think the rest of us will cave, but that's where we're at.
Further question, Councillor Smith and then Councillor Khan.
So, one more question. Do you have an update on the Plummer Spring Bridge? I know we were last projecting July. It is July.
I think I actually just sent out something about 2 weeks ago from John Eric. I have to go back and look, but I think we're still thinking July, end of July, August.
Okay.
But I'm happy to send out something around
Okay,
if
yeah,
there's
I'd be
any
very
update to
interested.
that. But
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure we just did that.
Councillor Khan.
Yes, Mayor, so we have Order 862 tonight, the emergency preamble, which is for a letter to the Haverhill Mayor. You mentioned a conversation on infrastructure that also is going to be happening. Can you share if there's been any kind of coordination amongst leadership from some of the downriver communities, like Mayor Gove and Angus Jennings? I know his day is coming up, but has there been any at your level, like leadership kind of having a conversation?
Well, I would say over the last 4 years, we've had lots of conversations. I think the larger communities haven't played a huge role in that. I remember Senator Kennedy passed away with Senator Tarr was working on a group too that were having some bigger conversations around funding for, Lowell, Lawrence, Haverhill. And I know Congresswoman Trahan and Congressman Moulton had been working with their New Hampshire colleagues around funding at the federal level. So in the last couple of weeks, we've been talking together, not necessarily about this, but just options we have as communities that we might legally pursue. I think there's a consent decree that I think a lot of you have probably seen going around that clearly has been violated. So we're just trying to get our options together about how we can maybe put some pressure on the downriver communities to get some of these fixes happening. Yeah.
Councillor Nicotic.
So I just to clarify communications with the mayor of Haverhill, during this latest crisis, you had mentioned in communications that she had not responded to your phone calls, that you hadn't talked to her up to, that you, from what I know, she's never talked to you during or that crisis or yet. Is that the case?
That's still true, yeah. I credit the Healy Driscoll administration because I think the communication was pretty non-existent. Mayor Gove and I worked together on a communication that she sent out on that Monday when we first found out that it was 8 million gallons a day going into the Merrimack, and we hadn't heard from Haverhill yet directly. So the minute Mayor Gove sent that out, she got a phone call from the Haverhill mayor. But besides that, I didn't hear it all. But then that's when, you know, the Healy Driscoll administration stepped in, and they kind of took over a lot of the communication piece. I know I've heard personally from a lot of Haverhill residents appreciating how well Newburyport communicated during it, so that felt good. You know, and I think there's a segment of the population that no matter how many different ways you communicate it, they're going to miss it as well. So it's something we continue to work on. But at the time, I think even in the state conversations I was in, they were just so hyper-focused on opening the beaches and locking down the leak. And so once the bypass, the first and second one, was put in place, it got pretty quiet. I know I had a couple calls last weekend, and those were those state calls, those whole government calls with the Department of Public Health and DEP and DCR. And those calls were all helpful, but I felt like the river, I mean, my feedback to them was I thought the actual condition of the river was the least of the priorities that everyone was talking about.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you, Mayor.
All right, happy birthday.
Well, you didn't sign up for public comment, but I'll let you speak.
State Representative Dawn Shand. First, happy birthday, Madam President. The Mayor stole my thunder. So I come bearing a gift. This is from the chair of the House Committee on Arts and Tourism. It is a letterpress printed version of the original Declaration of Independence. And I think we all know how it starts. We hold these truths to be self-evident. But we might not remember at the end, there is an order to take this to all clerks in the Massachusetts world and to make sure that they put that in their records in perpetuity. So this is actually a gift for Kathleen Sullivan. And it is in honor of all the work that clerks do in our state to keep our democracy going. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving right along.
Get this safe.
Sorry, don't mess it up.
All right.
All right, the consent agenda.
The consent agenda this evening consists of the approval of the minutes for June 17th and June 22nd, Communication 716, memo from the fire chief regarding Coffin Street to go to Public Works and Safety, Communication 717, an email from Walt Thompson regarding the city's community posting policy to be received and filed, Applications 338, the recurring block party on Lincoln Street between Beacon Ave and Marlborough Street, July 18th, 4 p.m., already approved by the city clerk's office to be received and filed. Application 340, an annual 5K run walk for September 27th from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. by GNOCA to go to license and permits. Appointment 680, Michael Wolichowski, a special police officer, to go to Public Works and Safety. Orders to be continued. Order 863 is a gift acceptance for $4,785 from the Bellevue Improvement Society, and Order 866, a gift acceptance of $5,168 from the Institution of Savings. The following items will be coming out of the respective committees with a vote of the approval of the consent agenda. Budget and Finance, Communication 713, Order 829, Order 851, Community Services, Appointment 675, General Government, Communication 714, and Order 856, Licenses and Permits, Applications 331 and 336, Planning and Development, Appointment 679, and Public Works and Safety, Communication 710. And that's the consent agenda. Councillor Hall?
I'd like to remove Communication 717.
One person can remove.
Appointment 680.
Motion to approve as amended and collectively receive and file the mayor's comment.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
The regular agenda tonight, so the first is Communication 717. It is the email from Walt Thompson regarding the city's community posting policy.
Motion to refer Communication 717 to general government.
Second.
Thank you. So if you've had a chance to look at this, the issue is that Mr. Thompson attempted to have a flyer posted in the library, and the library director said he could not. Mr. Thompson believes that his flyer was in compliance with our posting policy, and so I think that this is worthy of discussion in light of what happened a few years ago, where we had an issue. Was the former library director refused to post something, and that organization, you may recall, brought some legal action against the city, and there was a settlement payout. So that just makes me think that we should, at minimum, talk about it, but there may be some action we could take in terms of revising or clarifying the policy, or looking at the way it's consistently enforced. Thank you.
All right, others? All right, all those in favor of sending Nicotech.
I didn't realize there was an issue with the library, but we have one of Mr. Thompson's posters in City Hall on the bulletin board, and it is satire, and it's there. So I really, I think that our current policy is clear, and I don't think this warrants attention.
Thank you, Councilor Nicotech. Further discussion? Might want to do a roll call on this one.
Roll call on Communication 717 being referred to general government. Councillor Smith?
No.
Councillor Track?
No.
Councillor Zede?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
No.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delay?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
No.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nicotich?
No.
Councillor Shand?
No.
6 no, 5 yes, motion fails.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
All those in favor of receiving and filing 717, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One no from Councillor Hall. Councillor Hall, I'm sorry, was that one no?
Yes.
Thank you.
Correct.
No.
Just making sure, I heard it from on this side. All right, thank you. Next is application 339, Yankee Homecoming 2026, from July 25th to August 2nd.
Motion to waive the rules and bring this application to the council.
Second.
And to declare an emergency.
Declare an emergency, thank you.
All right, all those in favor of declaring an emergency, we have to vote on that first. Say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
Motion to approve application 339.
Second.
Discussion. No discussion?
Thank you. I just want to express my frustration that an event that happens every year for more than 50 years is we're being forced to eat our own rules and process. Of course, the City Council does not want to say no to the application for Yankee Homecoming. I think we love it, probably as much as more so than a lot of people in town. So support the event. Really invite the leaders who are do really great work and have a lot of fundraising and volunteers to recruit, and so not diminishing that at all. But please add to your calendar next year, a couple months in advance, we know when it happens, to come before us so that we can have a greater discussion in our normal process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, Councillor Nicotich, Councillor Callahan.
I guess my question is, on this event, do we know within this application, given we haven't had a lot of time to go through it, what's changed, what hasn't, what's consistent, what's not? I feel we're in a bit of a bind to kind of be unable to compare previous applications and do our due diligence, so we don't know.
We don't. Councillor Nicotich's next, and then Councillor Callahan.
I'm wondering if anyone in Chambers got any reason from YHC Inc. about why this happened. I did look, and last year their application came in on June 3rd for such a big series of events. That still seems a little late, but it was on. It gave the council time to go through the application and talk to them. So what could possibly be the excuse for this? Does anyone know?
I was just looking to see if Jason LaCroix was on. I had spoken to him and asked him to either come in person or be on Zoom tonight, but I don't see that he is. I don't know. The first we saw of it was between the two meetings, and there were no signatures and nothing attached to it. So we sent it back to him and said, you need to have signatures and you need the full packet for the council. And when the time we got it, it was where it sits now.
Councilor Dick.
If the chair of license and permits would even agree to this, because it's very unfair. If it went to license and permits, they do have a meeting.
Canceled.
You've canceled that meeting? And we have a special meeting. I love Yankee Homecoming, but the idea of just approving this as an emergency without any time for our committee to look at it, without any time for each of us to really look at it, just seems like an anything goes, free-for-all kind of treatment of the city.
I would agree with you. We could add it to the special agenda for next Thursday if we wanted to. Councillor Callahan was next, then Councillor Cameron.
Ed, you can go right now. I'm looking for something to...
Yeah, I'm in favor of us approving it. Yeah, I've been through this every year, except for last year, it was on time. I'll also make an amendment for us to direct the council president to communicate directly with Jason LaCroix, who I believe is the signatory on this, just next year. If this isn't received by early June, we're not going to approve it. I do note that the application was, again, to signature, so not sure, it is May 20th, so at some point in getting some of these signatures, maybe something became awry. I am a strong supporter of the event. We are the last Yankee Homecoming, dating back from the 50s, and I think we know how challenging it is to keep it all organized, so I'm sympathetic, but,
I'll second
so anyway.
that amendment. Do you need that?
Anyway, I make the amendment, and you can divine the rest of what I was going to say.
Councillor Callahan, we got it.
Two, observations. The first one is the page 53 in the packet, where the health director signatures. I think that's his signature. There's a line about public works, fee for special events, $45 an hour, DPS employees, blah, blah, blah. But then it says no fee for special events applies, so I'm kind of confused by the language in that. And I just want to point out that there is maps for several locations. They show the Knock Middle School fields. We're doing Family Day, but that's not happening at the Knock. It's at the Bresnahan. I spoke to the facilities director of the district on Friday. They're not doing anything really on those fields because of the Knock roof project. It probably doesn't matter because it's not our purview. It's not our grounds to approve or not approve or pay for the use of. But the application should have the right photograph, I would think.
Councillor Smith.
Just one other observation. I guess I share the concern. I'm not sure that we can even vet whether or not this is the current information. Most of the pages say that the document was updated in 2022. So I don't even know if this information is current and whether or not what we're approving actually is, in line with the plan.
I guess, so I have a comment of just that? I mean, sorry. I was on the board of Yankee Homecoming at one point. It is identical every year, except for that errant photo in here, I think. But the rest of the actual week is the same and has been for 60 years.
Can I get a clarification, though? I think, is the date April 1st, 2022, the application they're filling out date? I don't think it's the event.
Are you looking at the,
I think it's the form.
Bottom of
the bottom of the form? Yeah, that's just the last time the form was revised.
Yeah.
If it's on the bottom of the form, that's...
It's not on other forms. It's just, I don't know. They might be recycling.
Oh, it's not on other special event?
I just checked
So
other
it could be an older.
applications.
Maybe they used an old version.
Councillor Harmon.
Again, I apologize, just absorbing information in real time. It does look like, and I would assume this is new because the waterfront park was still grass growing, I believe, at Yankee Homecoming last season. Do you, I'm looking at, no, you don't know? Because I believe it was cordoned off for most of the summer. And there is a large section of the waterfront park, our brand new, park being used as a craft show. I'd love to know how they plan to protect the grass and keep that up to date. And again, this is a question that I'm sure there's an answer to or can be addressed, but we don't have time to have that debate. Just expressing my frustration with a clear example of something where we would, if we're on a path to approve this, which, I will extremely reluctantly support, you're exposing the city to risk, and I just want to put that on the record.
Councillor Chalk.
I'm not convinced that we don't have time to vet this between now and our special meeting. Councilor Nikotich had a great idea. I know licenses and permits, you have canceled your meeting, but if there is any way that we could hash out a schedule for that right now, or potentially just we could have time to discuss it on Thursday as the full council to vet it and have them here, failing licenses and permits being able to schedule, which of course you should not have to upend your lives because someone else did not fill out a form on time. But I think we can come to a way to vet this and have it approved by our special meeting without just saying, yes, this is fine, because this is very clearly not fine.
Agreed. Further discussion. Councillor July, would it be something that you would repost? Would you be up for reposting or allowing your committee to meet on license and permits on Monday night?
I guess that would be somewhat, I would defer to the person who's going to stand in as chair. I am not going to be present for that meeting, so Councilor Medina Smith was going to step in as chair. I think Councilor Callahan is also available if they wanted to.
Did you say Monday the 20th?
The 21st is when we had our... The original date.
Monday.
We have time to repost it. Tuesday the 21st, I'm sorry, yeah.
I'm amenable.
Councillor
So we'll
Callahan?
have the meeting?
Yes, I'm amenable to having just this.
We can make it committee of the whole.
Yep.
And then we can approve it on our special meeting, and we can add that to our agenda for the special meeting. How does that sound?
There's a motion on the floor, so we want to pull that.
You want to vote on the amendment to direct you to speak to?
I will do that.
Okay. So the vote on the floor is the amendment by Councillor Cameron, seconded by Councillor Harmon, that Council President will communicate with the applicant about being timely in the future.
I'll withdraw that amendment.
Second.
Okay.
You also want to withdraw the motion to approve.
Withdraw that motion.
Replace it with a motion to refer.
And motion to refer application 339 to license and permits.
Committee of the whole.
And committee of the whole, thank you.
Second.
All those in favor of referring to license and permits and committee of the whole, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you.
Okay, next is transfer with the emergency, the transfer 262. It's the emergency preamble for FY26 transfer request, EOY multiple $264,279.
Motion to waive the rules and approve transfer 262 emergency preamble.
Second.
Is this a roll call? Okay. All right. All those in favor of the emergency preamble, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So I'm just going to give some basic information. I'm going to defer to the finance director to explain any of the particulars as she sees fit. So we're now in the twilight zone of fiscal year 2026, having now closed at 11:59 p.m. on June 30th. So the state gives us this 15-day window because real life doesn't understand that life doesn't just stop on June 30th. Bills will continue to come in the intervening couple of weeks. So they give you until July 15th. To basically pay prior year bills from the prior year budget. Once you cross the threshold of July 15th, you're then into the new fiscal year. So what you have here is a list of transfers from, showing you a whole slew of accounts where money is coming from. Some of the big ones would be the clerk admin assistant, OPD personnel, Essex North Shore Tech, Highway Capital Outlay, and there's a few other ones. So those lines all have excess in them, which is why they're available, and putting aside if this transfer were not to have been proposed or failed, and this money would effectively fall to free cash, but it's being proposed to be transferred. So you can certainly question why some of these have funds available in them. As you can see, many of them, not all of them, are personnel. So usually this is going to be excess that exists because a position was vacant for some period of time throughout the fiscal year, causing one or more payroll cycles to elapse without a payment being made because nobody's there. So you see that, and then, for example, Essex Tech may be a student change or something like that. Debt service, principal and interest we budgeted for but didn't end up assuming the debt or came in lower. Then you have your transfer two. In this category, in this grouping, you have a number of categories, again, ranging from purchase of services to personnel. The snow is the obvious, large one in there, and that's the finance director trying to feather out the overages. We have the tax rate setting that we've talked about now a couple times, but there's an opportunity here, essentially, I think, is what the proposal is saying, to soften some of that overage by taking it from other monies from the fiscal year in which it happened, and that will soften some of the money that we'll have to come up with later. So you have fire personnel, highway personnel, parking, purchase of services. Anyways, altogether, it's $264,000 out across all the lines, and then, of course, the exact same amount back in across the lines as you see them. So that is what I know about it. I don't know if there's anything on any lines you want to address or questions people want to ask.
Thank you, Councillor Zaid. Questions? Councillor Smith.
So I'm wondering, outside of the personnel line items, if we can have a more of an explanation on how there was excess capacity there, because I think a lot of our basis for our budget due diligence in the incoming fiscal year was based on the assumption that year-to-date and the previous years were kind of in line with the expectations in terms of what was needed. If you could talk through some specifics, that would be helpful.
Personnel, just as a whole. So we had a couple mid-year vacancies where either the staff resigned and it was not filled, or it took longer to fill than anticipated. We had one department where someone went out on an unpaid leave as they had exhausted their accrued time off, but still had protected leave, and that allowed some excess in that department as well. So it was just unplanned absences or longer time to fill the positions than we had anticipated.
Could you speak to the IT capital outlay line item?
Yeah, so we had money in an actual capital project that was being used. The IT director had anticipated using this capital outlay line sooner, but had sufficient in the capital project that it didn't end up being fully needed this year.
I see. And the highway capital outlay? Do you know more about that one?
So that was the highway department during their spending freeze. That was, they did not spend it because they knew they were going to have the overage. So you'll see the corresponding 10,000 in the transfer too.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Zaid.
So I had asked this question in email, but I want to ask it on the floor. So the concerning ones to me are the transfers too that are personnel. So fire, for example, we had already tried to shore up. We thought we were going to get there. It seems like we didn't, or something came that we didn't expect. Highway was a little bit unexpected. And then insurance, it says personnel, but that's kind of a misnomer. It's just the insurance, which again, we tried to shore up with the transfer and we ended up short again. So I'm just curious, particularly on the highway and the fire, where we ended up with some extra costs there on personnel.
Highway, we were trying to go back to the original budget documents to see where this went askew, and haven't really been able to recreate that. So we don't know if it just wasn't fully budgeted correctly. We did have a couple internal transfers for openings in highway where people filled roles at a higher step because of their tenure. It doesn't equate to the full amount of the 25,000, but that did get us about 17.5 there. So I can at least account for 17.5 of that 25 from budget to actual. was we did have a couple vacancies in highway. As those union personnel went in, they were at a higher step than we anticipated.
And then fire, did we just end up with more OT for injured and sick, or?
It wasn't even injured, it was just the overtime. And it was the chief had underestimated how much people would be using time off, which would drive overtime costs in the last 2 payrolls of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Nikitic.
So I've been unable to find it, but I know I've seen somewhere in our code that there is supposed to be a mid-year presentation of the final numbers for the previous fiscal year. We didn't get that for 2025, and so I would just like to make sure that we do get it for 2026 so that we understand better what all of this has meant to the final numbers versus what we received in May.
Thank you, Councillor Nikitic. Noted. Anyone else questions before we go back around? Councillor Smith.
So my question's on the CCN, the city council shortfall.
Yes.
What's the reason for that?
So the clerk of committee's stipend was removed from the budget last year. It was not put forward in the mayor's proposal. It was not removed by council, but it was something that was offered to an employee at the time of their hiring, so this is just restoring that.
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor of approving transfer 262, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Next up is transfer emergency preamble 263, which is for FY26 transfer request for EOI water multiple to water personnel, $40,000.
Motion to waive the rules and approve the emergency preamble.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the emergency preamble, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you, Councilor Zip.
So I would just say a lot of ditto here. It's another July 15th motion to approve, 263. So it's a lot of similar thread in the sense that it's a July 15th deadline, June 30th. The difference is, and the reason it stands alone is this is enterprise fund money now, so you have water supplies and other charges adding up to $40K going to water personnel, and we've got 2 days to the 15th. Maybe just proactively you could just address the shortfall in water personnel.
So this one was, for those of you who are here early in the year, we knew this shortfall was going to happen. There was about a $58,000 employee where the formula for personnel budget just did not extend to the final row. The water department worked really hard to keep their budget to reduce this as much as possible, so they were able to create some savings so that we didn't have to come up with the full 58,000, but we were still going to be about 40,000 short to finish out the payrolls for the year.
Got it. Questions?
We have confirmed that FY27 includes all employees.
Thanks, Lead Director Sara. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of approving transfer 263, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Appointment carried over from the consent is appointment 680, Michael Wilczewski, Special Police Officer.
Motion collectively to, we have to vote on appointment, motion to approve 676.
Motion to approve 680, the one where,
First one.
the first one.
File.
On first reading.
On first reading.
Second.
Do we need to do a roll call on this? Roll call.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Trek?
Yes.
Councillor Zede?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delai?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Shan?
Yes.
11 yes. Next are the second reading appointments. Appointment 676, Sean Devendorf, 50 Prospect Street, to the Open Space Committee until 9/1/29, and appointment 677, Sarah Welch, 209 Merrimack Street, to the Human Rights Commission, 9/15/29.
Motion approved collectively on second reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track?
Yes.
Councillor Zede?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delay?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Shan?
Yes.
Order continuing from June 22nd is Order 857, gift acceptance for $1,000 from UFP Technologies, Inc., and Order 860, gift acceptance $4,162.50 from Friends of Newburyport Council on Aging. Order 861, a gift acceptance $4,256.36 from the Bellevue Improvement Society.
To approve collectively.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of approving collectively 857, 860, and 861, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Order 862, emergency preamble for the order to the Haverhill Mayor letter.
Motion to waive the rules and approve the emergency preamble.
Second?
Roll call.
Roll call on the emergency preamble for the order to the Haverhill Mayor. Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track?
Yes.
Councillor Zede?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delay?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
No.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Shan?
Yes.
10 yes, 1 no, motion passes.
Motion to approve Order 862.
Second?
Discussion.
Thank you. This is a letter created by myself and my co-sponsors to invite the mayor of Haverhill to come and meet with us. We wanted to have a productive dialogue to understand what they are facing in Haverhill, how we can be supportive as neighbors toward preventing just the catastrophic experience that we've had for our residents over the course of the last couple of weeks as it relates to the concerns and the pollution in the river. So encourage you to sign off on this if you would like to add your name, but we are trying to, like I said, create a dialogue, not an attempt to reprimand or whatever. We want to understand the situation at the level that I think we as people who are leaders in our municipality sit down with hard problems and have to face the complexity of our water and sewer system, and so we can hopefully relate and that it will be helpful for us. I think we've all heard the outcry from residents, and so it felt like this body had an opportunity to take some action on behalf of the folks that elected us. Thank you.
Discussion. Councillor Zede.
Thank you. I'm going to support this because I think the residents of Ward 1 would really like this invitation to be extended, and I think that's an important factor. I'm not sure about its efficacy or how valuable it will be, but you can only try. I felt compelled to stand up because I think every ward is affected, obviously, and the region's affected, but Ward 1 particularly having the beaches, was an all-hands-on-deck kind of week that week with lots of questions. So I just wanted to, acknowledge the residents. Really, it's probably more than frustration, honestly, it's probably anger at this point. I think that the patience has been maybe worn a little bit thin, and we all understand old infrastructure. These are old cities. We're an old city. We certainly are not perfect by any stretch on infrastructure, but a little bit probably over the top of what people can really accept, and then heading into the busy July 4th holiday and sort of the peace and enjoyment, and then actual real hard economic outcomes that I think are a result of this. We all heard collectively, I think, from the chamber. I believe that was sent to everybody. So there are some very real things and some definitely some opportunities. I think the spirit of this is to show the residents action, and that's why I would like to support it. And if the co-sponsors would have me, I would add my name to it as a co-signatory, just requesting the ask. I do just want to say again, if we were receiving this letter, right, you'd be thinking about it in a very different light, but I think the sponsor, on behalf of the current co-sponsors, tried to give it a good angle in terms of working together as neighbors, and that's what we're trying to do. So mostly my message tonight is to just acknowledge the residents of Ward 1 who are really upset about this and really are asking for us to do something, and that to also say, I'm trying to do other things too, and I think, as time progresses, we'll see what we are able to reasonably do and what can hopefully stem future incidents from occurring. So, thank you.
Councillor Sieg. Further discussion? Councillor Smith.
So first I want to say thank you to the three sponsors on putting this together. The only concern I have is as each individual community reaching out to Haverhill, I imagine they've gotten a lot of feedback, welcome or not, from many of the communities that are downstream from them, and I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to, to the earlier thread, partner with other communities to have a more open dialogue across the communities, because I imagine we're not unique in our situation in our impact, and if that might be more inviting or more incentivizing to the Haverhill administration rather than going to each individual community individually, having a conversation and figure out where we can collaborate and kind of share ideas, or the other way, maybe there's an opportunity for us to go to them, given the situation is in their home court.
Noted. Councillor Khan?
Oh, wait. Me, right? I didn't hear Khan. Sorry. This is loud. No, thank you, Council President. So I think similarly, I feel like the way this letter is framed right now, I really couldn't support it, because I think it does represent our city and the council here. And to me, really, it is very serious what happened. I am completely acknowledge that, the concern, the communication that we know has maybe not been as clear from the outset. However, I think for us to be collaborative and to work with Haverhill and the mayor and the community there, we need to be in a collaborative mode. And this is, especially during an emergency preamble, I would welcome an opportunity for us to be able to send this to committee to talk about making this as impactful and powerful, and really show Newburyport in a position of wanting to work with the community. So for me, the main kind of points, yes, we are not the only affected community. However, we do have the most at risk and most to lose, especially I think when you look at the economic implications, and as folks have talked about, a lot of the residents who, a lot of our livelihood or recreational or even just for business is really on the river and in the ocean. So there is a lot at stake for Newburyport and some of its community, but also Salisbury is also equally, maybe not equally affected, but affected as well. So this does not really read like an invitation to collaborate. It sounds more like explain why we didn't know about this, why you didn't communicate. And I know that's not the intent. I mean, I think it was overall framed in a way to work well, but I would welcome an opportunity, similarly like how we did with the application for Yankee Homecoming, is that if we don't rush this and we do actually reach out to Amesbury, Salisbury, and have it be kind of a more collaborative effort with the other communities. And I will say the other part that, to me, this is a letter the council is sending to a mayor, which is very different than how, as a councilor, I approach the other communities by talking to other councilors. That's why I did ask Mayor Reardon what was his role in maybe reaching out and talking to mayors. Mayor to mayor, even on the MMA, we see that there's the mayor associations, and they talk regularly, just like the councilor associations do. So for me, there's another layer here that I feel like the letter's missing, and that is actually the leadership that are also involved in having the conversation at those levels. And with that said, I also think our delegates, the state delegates, everything else I've written similar related to the Merrimack River, always involved our state rep, as well as our Senator Tarr, Rep. Shand, as well as our our Congress folks as well. So to me, this letter does not, I think, put our best foot forward, and I would really encourage, I don't think there's an urgency, because we could refine this and make this better and get it out with all of us unanimously supporting it.
Councillor Harmon?
Thank you. Just to quickly respond, I take the feedback and respectfully disagree. I think there could be no greater emergency in my mind of all the emergency preambles we've approved tonight to do something, to take some action, to Councillor Zeid's point, for the people who elected us in Newburyport. I don't represent people in Amesbury. I understand they probably are also upset. I do think Newburyport has outsized exposure here, being I used to represent Ward 1. The length of it is exposed to the Merrimack River. Councillor Zeed's in Ward 1, or I used to be Ward 4. I just think it is so clear and present for the residents, and that's what I've heard from them. And so taking more time to edit things and create a group to write a letter, and taking more time to reach out to other communities to find availability, and taking more time to reach out to our state delegation, all good ideas, all things that should have and hopefully have been going on for the last 10 years. I'm standing up right now for Newburyport because I believe that's my job.
Councillor Zeed.
I can wait to go over second round.
Councillor Trott, Councillor Cameron, Councillor Nicholson.
I would second what Councillor Harmon is saying here. Time is of the essence, and we wanted to reach out as quickly as possible so that we could get this dialogue started as quickly as possible. I would note that the letter also invites the mayor of Haverhill to bring anyone from her administration that she thinks could add to the conversation. I believe we would do that as well. And in that spirit, I don't think sending a letter to committee to be edited by committee and delaying this by 3, 6, 9, 12 weeks is going to get the residents of Newburyport the action that they are asking for. Talking never hurt anyone, and so we should start talking.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. I do agree it's timely, so I hope we could act on this tonight. I don't want to edit on the floor, but I'm going to say, you know, and I could form this into an amendment, but just to add a sentence, we would also welcome broadening this conversation to other stakeholders, and therefore we have CC'd, or we've also added our elected officials at the federal and state level, as well as other municipalities. And, you know, maybe we go a little bit upriver, because this happened in Haverhill, but it also happens in other places. But at least, you know, from Haverhill down to the river, so, you know, our state senator and state rep, you know, on the federal level, Trahan and Moulton, and I'd say the two U.S. senators, and those municipalities that fall in it, just, you know, the town manager or the mayor, and just, you know, we're trying to broaden the conversation, but start the conversation now. And, you know, it might not have any efficacy at all, but at least, you know, it's a statement, hey, we want to talk, and not let it die. This thing, title reference, ebbs and flows, you know, former Councillor Lane, you know, was you know, adamant about this a year ago. It fades away, then it pops up, and it's gonna keep coming back. So I'm all for getting it out the door. And again, I think those additions would be helpful to make it more impactful.
Do you have
It's friendly.
is that a friendly amendment?
Friendly amendment, yeah, that amendment, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Nicholson.
So I completely understand the concern and anger of residents, completely. And I appreciate that this letter to the mayor of Haverhill is supposed to vent it in a very nice way. It's very nicely written, but it is venting, I think, to the mayor of Haverhill. And I'm not sure this is going to be effective at all. This is a mayor who has refused to speak to our own mayor. So it might be viewed actually as kind of showmanship, which I don't think puts our determination to get some resolution and some answers to what happened in the best light. So I would be much happier if this were actually a letter to Senator Tarr and to Representative Shand to ask them to come before the council, to ask them the questions about what is happening in Haverhill, all the things, what are they investing in, you know, what is Haverhill doing? That mayor of Haverhill could certainly come if she wants to. But our state representatives are the ones that we really, I think, need to go to and talk to. And I know that Senator Tarr has come to the council about this in the past. I think he would be very willing to come back. But to answer, we can ask hard questions of our representatives at the state level. I don't think we can ask hard questions of the mayor of Haverhill. I don't think she's going to answer them. So, I mean, I'd actually like the council to be able to do some good for residents on this one. And for that reason, it could be readdressed so that it goes to Senator Tarr and Representative Shand. But just sending this to the mayor of Haverhill, it's hard for me to support. Thank you.
Councillor Z.
This is one of those ones where this is not an objective argument, this is not an on-point argument. I'm just asking my colleagues who are reticent to support, your points are very well taken, there's nothing unfair about what you said, there's not a lot of great arguments in response to them, but we have to, I have direct emails from residents saying, have you invited the mayor of Haverhill to Newburyport? Direct question, not, what are you going to do? I have those too, believe me, but have you invited the mayor of Haverhill? So you have to read it at face value. It is an invitation to come and speak to us. It is nicely put, and yes, we're frustrated. Yes, we would like to speak. Yes, it's unlikely that there will be a response or that this meeting will happen. That's okay. I think to the question of involving other communities, having been on the MRBA, million meetings, the Merrimack River Beach Alliance, it's very fraught to work with all of the communities, and the council's not going to be really equipped per se to like you look at the Whittier meetings, right? That's effectively a joint effort by a bunch of communities. You have to have a committee, and it's this whole thing. We just need to push something out the door. It's read it as you will, but the words are nice, and they say, please come and talk to us. And I think, as I said, we've really strained credibility now with residents on saying, hey, look, they're just having a tough time with infrastructure. So people are asking us to do something. So I'm asking you to put aside some of those objective concerns and consider the subjective of what residents are directly asking at least me to do. Maybe you too, I don't know what's in your inbox, but if you got some of the fireballs that I did, you would feel, I think, similar about it. The last part, I think talking with the state rep and senator is always a good idea. I don't think we have to send them a letter. If we send them an email and say, can you please come to a meeting, they'll be happy to come and share what they know, which may or may not be a lot. I do think a lot of the conversations are going to happen at the state level, and I didn't want to get too far in the weeds, but having studied a lot of these, this was not a classic CSO event in the same way that we've had in the past. This was classic infrastructure failure as opposed to high rain causing over capacity at the plant causing CSO. So this may even be more of an SSO than a CSO, but again, we're into the weeds now, and it's like, whatever. So that's, again, residents, it's a distinction without a difference. They couldn't go to the beach as a result of something. So I think this will be more powerful coming out 11-0. I'm asking you to consider that point of view. It's something the residents are asking us to do, and I think we just answer their call.
For Councillor Smith.
So I guess the only thing to add, so I will be supporting this. I think the way that I see this, though, is it's got to be a yes and I think we need to do more than this. I think this should be a first communication. I do hope that the mayor of Haverhill does come and join us. But I think some of the suggestions here around kind of engaging with state leadership, identifying where there should be regional collaboration and who should be leading it. I think we should have more conversations on this, but I think this can be one of many things in our toolkit to help engage in that conversation.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Khan.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the debate. I think this is very helpful, and I can probably get myself around this if we do just a couple of other edits. I am curious if it would not hurt to start to say the mayor and the city council of Newburyport, and we can get the mayor to also join. And the reason I'm saying is because I do think from a future relationship, communication, it really should also involve the mayor. And I know we've done things before with the mayor and the council, and I think that will bring it more powerful and to the level of where the conversations really need to also be happening on an ongoing basis. So I don't know if the mayor's here, if someone can see, and if my colleagues agree, I think that would be a more powerful amendment.
Do you have other amendments? Do you want to do them all?
I can make more?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm
Well, do you
asking
want to
him
do
now,
that
but
one
if
first? That's a pretty big
I'm
one.
asking him now, but if there are others.
The other thing, I really, the first bullet, a full debrief on the incident, starts off as a very accusatory nature. And so for me, it's all about language being a little bit more like, so let's talk about the intent. The intent is to invite them here to have a conversation and to discuss and get some clarity, not just for us, but for the residents as well. And to me, the most resonating point here is that the last bullet, which is how are things communicated? Because we know with aging infrastructure, for example, I'll give our lower Artichoke Dam breach, there will be an instant where we may also be in a situation where we know that we plan that we're going to do this in 3 or 4 years, we may have a seriousness on our hands as well. So does that mean that we were in neglect because we knew it was there but we didn't fund it yet? So I want to be very thoughtful in how because we're in the same position as a city that has infrastructure that could have failures. So to me, the most important thing is, though, the communication. When something happens like this, how do you communicate to the rest? How do you work with the mayor to send out, the communication, the notification, the status updates, get on conference calls or Zoom calls, what is the emergency management plan? That to me is probably the only bullet that I think is of the most relevance.
Do you have an amendment you'd like to add?
Sure, but
change it.
Well, can I delete the first one?
You can't do anything.
I would like to delete that first one.
All right, so that can be taken under consideration. The mayor is here.
Read out what you're deleting.
Well, before we do that, the mayor is here.
Oh, okay.
The question was, we have the letter to the mayor of Haverhill, and the question was, would you be willing to have it be stated the mayor and city of Newburyport would like to invite you?
Yeah, I'm open to that. I think Councilor Khan is correct. I think coming from the whole administration and council, that's more weight to it. Also, the peach pie was delicious. So that's always a plus, too. And I've been listening for a little bit now. I wanted to say another thing that we're working on is that we've been meaning to have a public meeting down in Plum Island for quite some time, and so we're looking in August to set that meeting up. But that meeting will be hopefully a combined meeting around what happened in the river, but then also answering questions around the air vac sewer system once we have some definite information to share. So we are working on that, and I just talked to the state rep about it, but I've also mentioned it to Senator Tarr about bringing DEP to that meeting so they can hear directly from that department. I don't think that will be an issue, but I think that will be great to have them on the scene so people can ask their questions and hear directly from the source.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Truck and then Councilor Cameron, Councilor Callahan.
I am keeping a running list of potential changes here, and I have Councilor Cameron's suggestion that we, say that basically my suggested addition to address what I believe is the amendment currently on the floor is just Councilor Cameron's about that friendly amendment. So if you are looking at this letter and playing along, I suggest that after the bullets and then the paragraph beginning, and of course we welcome you to add items to the agenda, et cetera, adding the sentence, in the spirit of collaboration, we are also extending this invitation to the leaders of Amesbury, blank, whatever communities along the river we want to include, as well as State Representative Shand, et cetera, Senator Tarr, and our federal representation, name. That is what I am proposing to cover Councilor Cameron's suggestion. It is very easy to add the mayor to both the first sentence of the letter as well as the signatories at the bottom. As for the suggestion that we eliminate the first bullet, I would respectfully disagree that that is helpful. The reason the bullets are listed the way that they are, just to give some insight into the process here, was to suggest an agenda, which, becomes clear after the bullets when we talk about adding items to the agenda. So as a posited agenda, these bullets are listed in the order that it would make the most sense to have a productive discussion, not in the order that we think are the friendliest or the order that we think are perhaps most important. But in order to begin a productive discussion, we would begin with a full debrief on the incident. We would talk about what happened and leading up to it, what happened during, what happened, as far as the communication. So I am not personally amenable to taking out these bullets or reorganizing them. They make they have a logic, the way they are done, and it is 10 after 8. We have a workable thing here, so I think.
So motion to amend.
Yep, right, thank you. So
First, can we parliamentary go in order? So first, we need a friendly amendment accepted on the floor for what Councillor Cameron, that can be a...
and what Councilor Chalk just stated, yes.
Just the additions of those people. So that's a so vote, that's a...
Yes. All those in favor of the amendment that we just mentioned, adding the names of the delegations, according to what Councilor Chalk just said, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So
And
we've got that.
Councillor Khan needs a second for her motion to add the mayor. I'm sorry, was that?
Second.
Second, okay. To adding the mayor and deleting the first bullet point, which is...
No, just adding the mayor for now. Let's just do them one at a time.
Okay. So now that's on the floor to add the mayor.
All those in favor of just of adding the mayor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Motion to amend to edit the first bullet to say a full review of the incident, including the condition leading up to the incident, an overview of the emergency response, and the rest as it is.
Second.
So that's a review of the incident, including what was known, including the conditions leading up to the incident, and then the rest of the sentence as it is, an overview of the emergency response. So we'll get rid of a full debrief of the incident, including just soften it up a little bit. A review of the incident, including the conditions leading up to the incident,
I'm good with that.
and overview.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, just for clarification, you also want to take out what was known about, just including the condition of the main.
Correct. And to replace it with a little similar but different.
Okay, so discussion on that point? Councilor Delay.
I would just concur with that. I think that line, including what was known, could potentially result in a city solicitor saying you shouldn't come to this meeting and answer that question. I hope she accepts the invitation. That might help.
Okay. Councilor Callahan.
I won't support any edit of the first paragraph. If it's going to end up being legal, she should bring her legal representation with her. They have 35 CSOs a year. It's ridiculous. I know this is a totally different, worse thing. She didn't call every other mayor, like, within minutes of it happening. You know, it's uncalled for. You know, you get more flies with honey than vinegar. Is that the saying? Who wants flies? I don't know. I don't find this to be too vinegary at all. And I'll accept Councilor Cameron's edit, but nothing else.
Thank you, Councilor Callahan.
And the mayor being part of it.
Was already voted on, so we're
The
done.
motion on the floor is what Councilor Z just stated. Would you repeat it, please?
So the first bullet becomes a review of the incident, including the conditions leading up, a review of the incident, including the conditions leading up to the incident, an overview of the emergency response, and then the rest of the sentence completes as it is.
Okay, discussion.
So again, I'm just going to keep standing up and saying, you know, let's meet in the middle here. 11-0 with the mayor is what you want on something like this. That's just alchemy. It's how it works. 9-2 is not as helpful. So I understand the fire, I do. And if I were to just directly channel 100% of the residents, it would be not suitable for, you know, TV. So let's just try and, can you come along on this? I get what the point is of the first. I understand the words very clearly. I understand the sentiment they convey. I tried to give you something that's, there but not there. So I'm asking for your consideration. Just, see if you could work with it.
All right, Councilor Khan.
Yes, motion to delete second bullet.
Wait, we need to, first
Oh,
we're
sorry.
going to get this one first. So,
Trying to move us along.
sorry. Further discussion on the amendment that Councilor Z has offered for the first bullet. All right, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Councilor Khan?
Yeah, motion to delete the second bullet.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes. So again, I'm being very mindful, the CIP, they do have a city council, and I don't see us in the business of going through another community CIP. It's all public information. I think in terms of staying in line with what we're trying to accomplish, especially when you read the opening, to discuss the recent failure, and I think, again, find out about the incident. I feel like the other two, the third bullet on CSOs is great, but I think for that first, the second one on CIP, which is a public document, we do have access to that as well. I don't see the point of it here.
Okay. Councilor Harmon, and then Councilor Nikitic.
Thank you. agree with Councillor Zede. I want to get to something we can all be aligned on. I want to speak to this one in particular because I have reviewed Haverhill's CIP, not in depth, but I went to find it to see if they had one before I put it in a letter to say, referencing something that may not exist. So I have looked at it. I think the spirit of this is to understand, and this goes back to my sort of intention here, is to be better equipped to answer questions from the people that I represent. And if I have an opportunity to sit down with the mayor, I would like to include in, as Councillor Chalk said, the agenda, some space to say, what do you know is coming down the pike? And how can I get myself more educated? I went and I now have tabs open of the sewer maps of how they run through the whole 135 miles of the city of Haverhill. Because I want to be armed with good information. So if we know something is coming in the next 5 years, in the next year, that could be a positive thing, that there's a great grant that they've secured. You know, this is all in the intention of being able to speak intelligently and accurately to the situation on behalf of the residents of a different municipality who have been affected by it, right? And so I'm not asking for a full examination of the CIP, but I just want to keep something on the agenda to be able to talk about future-looking infrastructure needs.
Councillor Nicotic and then Councillor Chalk. Sorry.
So of all the bullets, actually, this was the one that if this, by some miracle, if this meeting ever happens, was the one that I thought would be the most interesting item. And it asked for insight into, and we know our own CIP is a wish list. We've tried to get better about, you know, making the wishes more more realistic.
More better.
Yeah.
So more better.
But I'm sure that their CIP is the same. So the insight part of it is interesting to me. You know, what process did they go through a process as we have for the past 2 years as a city to really try to drill down? Do they have ad hoc committees on their sewer infrastructure? There's also someone on social media who made a very good point, and I think could be discussed. I'm not going to try to add anything to this, of course, but you know, if that conversation ever happens, are they doing new sewer hookups? You know, is the city of Haverhill still allowing building permits so that they're adding to the sewer without having any answer to this problem? So I think that's an excellent question, and also a good one for our state representatives, because maybe they could put some pressure on them to halt until they really resolve this. So I, you know, just in summary, I like that bullet point. Thank you.
Councillor Nicotic actually just mentioned what I was here to say, is that now that we have invited many other communities and our state and federal delegation, it makes a lot of sense to hear about Haverhill's capital improvement program and their plans to pay for this. I imagine that our state and federal delegations would be very interested in how much these items will cost and how they can help. So having numbers on the table will serve this well. I would not support removing this bullet.
Councillor Zede.
So we're getting to the diminishing returns. So the first bullet, very obvious why it was edgy. The rest of these are sort of okay, in my opinion. So my suggestion is I don't want to close the debate and motion to move the question, but I just think, you know, if you don't like an amendment, you can vote against it, but I think this is in pretty good shape now. We took out kind of the first bullet or softened it up, so I'm again asking to, let's vote on this, and I suggest we vote on the underlying as it is now.
All right, so the amendment that's on the floor is to delete the second bullet. So without...
Actually, I'll withdraw it.
Okay.
I was compelled by Councillor Nicotic.
So we got a motion to approve as amended on the floor.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor? As amended. The letter to...
I'm a sponsor now.
And Councillor Zede's the sponsor?
Yeah.
We'll add anybody who
More
wants to be
better.
on.
Okay, so we do show of hands of people who want to be on the letter. Is that fair enough?
So everybody,
Hard to resist.
Add everyone.
All right, all those in favor of the amendments to Order 862, approve
The
as is.
underlying motion.
I mean, the
As
whole...
amended, yeah.
As amended. All right. We've had plenty of debate. All those in favor of Order 862 as amended, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
If I could, Councilor Track, when you put that all together, would you send a, thank you, appreciate that.
Just a real quick point of order. Councilor Zita, if you could email me what you said, I think I got it, but I just want to thank you.
Okay. Next up, Order 864, the early voting state elections 2026, police details, the election calendar, and the poll workers.
Should I refer to general government?
Second.
All those in favor of sending 864 to general government, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
Order 865, a gift acceptance of $100,000 from Let's Foundation.
Motion to refer to budget and finance.
Second.
All those in favor of sending 865 to budget and finance, say aye.
Aye.
Order 867, FY27 grant acceptance for MVP 2.0 climate
Motion to refer to
resistance.
budget and finance. Rolling.
Favor of BNF 867, say aye.
Aye.
Order 868, prior year's bills, authorization $23,877.30.
Motion to refer to budget and finance.
Second.
All those in favor, say,
Forget it. If
you
you're
want to
good,
speak
I'll
to
do
it?
I just want to explain, this is different than the other ones. The other ones are to pay them with the money from last fiscal year. This is just, these are bills that came in after the fiscal year closed, but it's to pay them with current money. Where they
Gotcha.
still need authorization because we were out of the period. So I just want to explain why there's no emergency on this one, whereas we had to do emergency on the other one.
Thank you for the explanation, Councilor Z. All right, all those in favor of sending 868 to budget and finance, say aye.
Aye.
Ordinances from the late files. So it's ordinance 226, the zoning ordinance to reduce overall height allowances.
Refer to planning and development and committee of the whole.
Second.
Councilor Harmon.
Apologies. Didn't think we would have that much discussion prior, but I do think this, I would like to provide some explanation to folks, especially ones not on planning and development. So as I mentioned in my committee report at our June 22nd meeting, contained within the state budget, specifically in the Senate outside sections version of the bill, there were a handful of items around housing production. One item in our interpretation with the discussion with our city solicitor and Director Port could potentially expose our R2 neighborhoods outside the DCOD by limiting the ZBA's ability to work with neighbors when a renovation is proposed, specifically on non-conforming lots, specifically relative to the height of the structure. I won't get into it more than that. We will have an opportunity, hopefully, to discuss this further in committee. This is a particular ordinance amendment proposed to address only height outside the DCOD in the R2, taking it from 35 feet to 25 feet. So I appreciate Director Port in getting this together. I also want to thank Councilor Trock and Councilor Shan, along with Mayor Reardon, for pulling out all the stops to try to convince our state delegation all the way up to the governor's office to veto this item. We were unfortunately unsuccessful, and we find ourselves, frankly, scrambling. Frankly, I got this, I think, at 4 or 5 o'clock today. I'm not quite sure I like what this looks like in its current form. So we have work to do. The whole purpose of bringing this in, and I appreciate my colleagues for allowing it to come in as a late file, is to get the process started. We have bylaws that cause us to have to take this to before the joint public hearing with the planning board. We have a date in mind. I'll talk more about that in the committee report. And lastly, as you all know, we have been diligently studying this specific area of town and these types of dimensional controls for months. And this is not intended to replace that process, which continues on Wednesday. This is meant to give us a vehicle, should it be the will of this body and the committee, to take action to be able to do something as quickly as possible to shore up that loophole. So I'll leave it there, send it to committee, and come join us.
Councilor Nikitic, and thank you, Councilor Harmon.
So does Chair of P&D have an idea of the dates for the committee discussion and the joint public hearing?
Yes, I was going to address that in my committee report. So the joint public hearing will be August 5th. That will likely be the first time that we will take this up. Depending on the feedback of committee members in the planning board, we can take action as quickly as that evening, which would then put this back coming into the next council meeting. But August 5th is the first date that we'll be able to take action on this in the joint public hearing.
Councillor Nikitic, do you have a follow-up?
Just, there is no separate committee meeting before the planned joint public hearing?
Correct.
Councillor Z.
I just have two comments, and I know it's kind of odd on the way in, but I still want to make them now. One is, maybe we can the city solicitor opine on, I got the language from the state bill, and I'm not sure I fully understand what the exposure is, so I think it would be helpful to have some brief explanation of, this is what's currently happening. When this becomes law, which it sounds like is happening, this is what the new condition will be. I understand it's about pre-existing non-conforming. We have plenty of those, and the expansion's allowed if the pre-existing the extension would then be in compliance with the current zoning. So what I'm not 100% clear on is why there's a down zone in the height, I guess. So I just need something from I think the city solicitor should get, you have August 5th, you have 3 weeks, so it would be timely. And the second thing is, and I'm going to object in committee too, but I really ask that, at least in my ward, I want my own R2, like R2-1, because we're setting something up that then, is, like you said, like the chair said, conflicting with other conversations that we've been having where we were going in a different direction. So if we're going to splinter off R2, it seems to me that now would be the right time to start dividing it into the right places, because otherwise then it's another thing we have to do later. And I'm not speaking abstractly. This has literally been the conversation for 6+ months. So,
Councillor Harmon, then Councillor Nikitic.
Just to quickly respond, so we will get the city solicitor on record. I may have that. I just can't put my fingers on it. I'm obviously not the time or place to review that, but I would direct Councillor Z to our Workshop 2 recording where we had the city solicitor and we did discuss this matter. That would be June 10th. And so there's a good 20-30 minutes of back and forth hashing out what this means. I won't try to pretend I have more expertise than I do. I have studied it quite a bit, but I will let you get the answers from the experts on that.
all right, thank you for the heads up.
Councillor Nikitic.
So I think, because this will move very quickly, I think it's fair for me to say that I am going to ask for an amendment in the public hearing that the decod be included for a height of 27.5 feet of median height. And before that joint public hearing, I will write down why. I think that's a good idea.
Thank you, Councillor Nikitic. All right, further discussion. All right, all those in favor of sending the ordinance 226 to P&D Committee of the Whole, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Committee items.
Okay, budget and finance. First, we're going to start with the easiest one. Motion to receive and file Communication 713 Resiliency Committee comments. So committee met on June 30th, and we took this up. We also, sort of talked about all of these topics during our budget and CIP workshops. So this was a letter from the Resiliency Committee, and it had some important comments about their support for projects and timelines included in the CIP, and some amendments that carried. It was still left in committee. We had a brief discussion on the 30th, but we were comfortable receiving and filing it, and it was 3-0.
Thank you. Further discussion. All right, all those in favor of receiving and filing Communication 713, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
All right, next is a motion to approve Order 829, Loan Order 3.076 million Water Meter Replacement Program.
Second.
Okay, so just start off with some basics. This is related to water meters. It has been in committee more than the 30 days required by our rules, having come in on April 27th. We spent, in the end, a good amount of time across a couple of meetings trying to vet this project and learn as much as we could about it. It is to replace the water meters, but really they're the water sewer meters if you think about it, because you end up getting measured and then paying your rates and so forth against both of those things. So this specifically is for the purchase of the water meters, the physical water meters. It is not inclusive of the installation of the water meters, which will be the subject, at least from what we understand, of a future bond. So this one, at least as it stands now, is $3 million, and the estimate for the installation bond is about 2.575 or something around those. So together, they're about $5.5 million. Part of the reason that they were split into two bonds is because they're going to be different length bonds. One is for hard goods, the water meters themselves, and then the other one would be for the installation. So now I'll give you as many specifics as I can, and then you could certainly ask questions as you wish. But the water and DPS, let me call them all together, have been looking at replacing the meters for quite some time. If you go back in the record, it's been talked about on and off over many years. And the primary reason that's being presented as the reason the meters need to be replaced now is they have reached end of life. And so what does that mean? It means a couple things. One is the meters themselves seem to have more variance as time goes on, meaning they become less accurate at actually measuring the amount of water going through. That's one reason that's been stated. A second one is the technology ages. The technology in this case referring primarily to being able to read them. So they have to have a meter reader drive around and read these meters. But that's a technology that over time gets weaker and more obsolete. And then part number 3 is just improvements. At least we're explaining that new meters can do more things. So for example, they can provide more data to the end water user. You can log in and see more about what you're doing. They can do things like detect leaks that isn't possible today. And leaks, we understand, are one of the primary reasons that people apply to the Water Sewer Commission for an abatement to their bill, meaning they disagree with the bill, and if they have an issue, that can be one of the reasons is the meter or not detecting a leak or not knowing there's a leak, like a running toilet and so forth. Okay, so next up is we talked about the actual meters themselves, warranties, life. So you buy a meter. This is a 10-year bond that's being proposed here. On paper, we think they're going to get about a 15-year life. We're exceeded that on our current meters, possibly as much as 20. The new meters have the new technology that I mentioned, the leak detection and so forth, and they are easier to read and require less time and people to go out and read that and so forth. We did run into a bunch of snags, to be honest with you, in committee. For example, we didn't at the beginning understand that this was only for the purchase of the meters, but we did uncover that. Councillor Delay was able to gather that in large part thanks to the CIP, showing a couple different things and determining that, so we did explore that, as I mentioned. There are about 8,600 meters in the city, so we started talking about that. At one point, we thought we understood that they would be taking delivery of all 8,600 meters at a time, and at one time, at one moment, and then storing them. And it's going to take roughly 2.5 years to install all of these meters. In the latest conversation, we understand that they can actually take delivery in tranches. They don't have to take all of them all at once, and that we are able to sort of hold the warranty until we get them. So they would work in segments. Another area of concern was, well, how or where will you install them? How do you know? And we learned in the latter meeting that they will focus on meter routes. I believe there are 3 meter routes in the city that are driven, so they would focus on it. So there will absolutely be time when both the old system is online and the new system is online, and it will take 2.5 years, as mentioned. And again, you have to go into every home, business, structure, or whatever to install these meters, so there's a whole element to it. And that's part of why eventually they will bring forward an installation order for a bond, because we do not have enough capacity in man hours and so forth within DPS to go and do that. And there are specialized companies, I guess, that do that along the way. A couple of other things. They think they can start in the fall, so they would be able to, the bid already went out for these, and that has been received, so the theory is they could start in the fall, and then again, it's going to take a good period of time. But they feel like this bid allows us to access low bulk pricing by basically agreeing to buy all 8,600 meters at once. And then we sort of continued on. The current estimate based on testing old meters that have been pulled from service is they're low by typically 3 to 4%. So as we get into rates in the future, people would expect their bill to carry more. And this is not like the general fund where you still are going to collect the same number of dollars. This is just going to inflate like a balloon. So if you're low, or if you had a really slow meter, you might have to pay more, and if yours was more dead on, then you may have no change at all. We then went off into a long conversation about, how do we even plan for the next round of meters, because this one in the record goes back many years, and there were all kinds of thoughts about, let's have a meter fund, let's put money aside to be ready, let's do it on a rolling basis. And we also beat up a lot of other options, like why can't we do a third now and a third next year and a third the year after, or even just over the period of 10 years, replace all of them. But the economics argument was the one that was presented, basically buy all of them, get off the old system faster, although it's by no means instant along the way. So tough, honestly, a tough discussion overall, I would say. We also talked about deduct meters, or second meters as they're called, for people who are paying for the sewer, because you pay sewer on every drop of water, even if it doesn't go down the sewer. That didn't go many places, honestly, in the conversation. So again, tough order. I tried to summarize it as best I can. It was 2-0-1 in committee, so 2-4-0 against, and I was present, and I'll explain more. That's it for the committee report.
Thank you, Councillor Z. Further discussion. Councillor July.
So I apologize that I didn't do this as part of our committee deliberations, but I did reach out to Tom Watkins at DPS and asked for the procurement file and copies of all the technical and price proposals. I do have in front of me the actual price proposal that was received by the vendor who had the winning proposal, and the total cost for all the meters, for all the software training, is $2,275,460. So I know we have Director Turner here and Director Asaro. Do you have an explanation for that $800,000 delta between what's in the bond order and what the price proposal came in at?
Yes. So it is a combination of additional meters, which, as you heard during the meter discussion, we are locked in on a per unit price. So even if we have to buy more meters, we still get the same bulk discount for it. So it does allow for us to purchase additional meters, and it does allow us to begin the very beginning stages of installation, just in case there is overlap between that. It's about $300,000 for additional meters, $500,000 for potential early install.
Okay, if I might ask, yeah. So my understanding, following up on Councillor Z's conversation, was that we had to do two separate bonds, one for the installation, one for the purchase. This one is for the procurement. We don't have a bid out on the street for installation at this point.
No, we don't, and that's why we didn't want to bond both of them at the same time, because we would really just be guessing what the install cost is. This is just to bridge in case we do have that delay between when the bid goes out for install and when we actually do the permanent bond. So it gives us a $500,000 buffer to begin that before we go to market for it.
Okay, so just clarification, so it's not the case that we have to bond these separately? Because it
No.
sounds like you're saying we could use this bond. So we could have bonded this whole project, both procurement and installation, all together as a $5.75 million authorization?
Yes. We would just have to have a very good knowledge of what we're borrowing for, because we don't want to over borrow.
And the other question I have is the meter replacement fund. As I understand it, we do have a meter replacement fund that has close to $300,000 available to it. Is that specifically for this purpose, for
Yeah,
water?
so we would draw that down before we tap into the bond itself.
Okay. In light of that, I think what I'd like to do is offer an amendment to amend the amount of the bond from $3.076 million to $2.5 million. That basically is 2.275 plus about a 10% contingency. I think between that contingency and the money that you have in the water meter replacement program fund, because this was stated as a bond specifically for procurement of the meters, I feel like this will get you the procurement of the meters.
Second.
Discussion on the amendment.
I have a general discussion question. So,
Councillor Smith?
So you mentioned 300,000 is for additional meters. Do you know how many meters, and like, I know there's a lot of conversation on like how do we handle new growth, how far, Can we do that? I know we're getting at the bulk pricing, but like roughly, how much are we protecting for?
It was really just a ballpark when we were working through it of just have an amount of money for those replacement meters.
Do you know what the price per meter is by any chance?
I don't off the top of my head. I don't know if it's in the documents you have printed.
I can, yeah. So it depends upon the size of the meter. Most of the meters are $212. Some of the bigger meters go up as high as $1,400. The total quantity here listed does exceed the 8,600. There's about 9,000 meters, which I think is what the gentleman from Apex had mentioned at our meeting, that this was more than just the 8,600.
Yes.
Did I answer your question?
It did. I have another comment, I guess.
Okay.
And then I'll be done. I guess more in general, I think we do need to have a fast follow conversation about like what do we do next. I think this batch process gets us on the level playing field, but I think doing this every 10, 15 years doesn't feel sustainable, and kind of a rolling basis might be something we want to look into, and kind of also seeing how we look into our fixed fees as well, as an opportunity to rebuild this reserve in the future. So I hope that we can have a fast follow conversation on that.
Counselor? Counselor Delay?
Yeah. To Councilor Medina Smith's point, I just, having reviewed some of the history on this, I actually went back to meeting minutes of the Water and Sewer Commission that date back to 2013. And at that time, the intent was to actually create this meter replacement program fund that would eventually be used to replace meters on an ongoing basis. And the intent in 2013 and again in 2017 was to transfer annually from retained earnings to this fund to fund future meter replacements. So to the councilor's point, I too, it's probably not appropriate at this moment in time, but hope that we can look at doing this more as a ongoing funding cycle as opposed to a wholesale replacement.
So currently the amendment on the floor is, would you repeat that one more time?
What's that?
Repeat the amendment one more time?
Yes, to reduce the amount to $2.5 million.
Okay. All right. Further discussion on the amendment? All right, we should vote on that. All those in favor of the amendment to $2.5 million for the loan order, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Councilor Z.
I just want to speak for myself on the underlying motion. So I'm really frustrated, honestly. I can't figure out, I mean, just from going back to finding out this was the meters only and not the installation, and then never in my 10 years did we really ask for the procurement documents to see what the actual bid came in. Oftentimes we didn't have a bid yet. It was assumed that the numbers being presented were good. And so, I mean, that's a fairly big gap. I mean, $800,000 is not an acceptable level of error for the Committee on Budget and Finance. I don't condone it, but I'm also not going to take responsibility for it because we don't look at procurement documents. We look at bond orders that were presented. Second is I don't exactly find compelling, that we're gonna jumpstart the installation. That wasn't something we've talked about. In fact, in committee we talked about it's probably time to catch up the installation order, the bond order for the installation with the purchase of the meters, because that was one of the primary concerns of the committee at the time was you're going to buy these meters and now what? And there wasn't any why that went to bid and the installation didn't go out to bid. That's a debate or a conversation all to itself. So I'm very reticent about all that and frustrated. I'm also, wanted to have a bigger conversation about the deduct meters. I thought this was an opportune time. I've been on too long to know I'm not going to amend this order and get bond counsel all in a tizzy about it. So I'll take my concerns up in another case. But those were two of the things. The third and final thing I want to say is just when we get into the rates conversation, I just want to remind you again that 3 to 4% potential bump in a person is going to compound with increasing rates. So it is germane to this conversation because if you're here and then now it's measuring to here, again, it's not going to stay inside the balloon, it's going to get bigger, meaning your bill will be higher. And everything in life is averages, so the average could be 3 to 4%, but you could have somebody's meter that was off by 8 or 10%. I was just reading stories about some of the National Grid new smart meters. People were having insane, like 500% increases, which you can blame the old meter, but from the person's perspective, they were getting a bill. This is what they thought was normal. and now. So I'm just asking councillors to consider that in the context of the broader themes.
Thank you, Councillor Z. All right. So, with all that being said, is there any other discussion to be had? All right. All those in favor of Order 829 as amended, roll call. All right.
So Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Schrock?
Yes.
Councillor Zede?
No.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delai?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Shan?
Yes.
10 yes, 1 no, motion passes.
Motion to approve Order 851, water sewer rates.
Second.
Okay, I just drew the short stick today for trying to explain really hard and long conversations, but I'll do my best. So this is your water sewer rates for FY26. Thank you again for indulging, giving us a little bit of grace with the budget. We just could not get there. We had another long-ish meeting about this last week, so I could meet about it for a long time because it's a very complex topic. But every year we set water and sewer rates. I just want to answer a couple FAQs. No, we don't have to set rates at a specific time. You know, this question seems to come up all, can you change the rates in January? Yes. Can you change them in December? Sure. Whenever you want, you can bring an order in and change them. And the rates are good. There's no end to rates. There's a beginning to rates. This one says, you know, effective July 1, 2026, which we're going to fix hopefully, but there's no end. So in other words, if you don't take action, the rates continue as they are. Now, that's a technical conversation. There's a practical standpoint, which is you have to meet the budget you've passed and all the things I told you all during the budget. All right, so with that context in mind, there's a lot happening with this year that's not normal. Most years we simply update the rates, but the structure stays generally the same. This year it's a different structure, familiar but different. What's different is we have for a long time had 2 tiers. So tiers would run from the first 3,000 cubic feet and then 3,000 plus cubic feet for both water and sewer. And if you're just looking at the order, you'll notice now there are 3 tiers. That's one change, and that's a pretty big change. The second change is that Tier 1 now goes to 2,000, not 3,000. So that the Tier 1, I just want to explain that tiers mean you pay that rate on the first 2,000, and then the 2,000 first, that one, you'd pay the next rate. So it's like federal income tax brackets. You know, you don't. Once you get into the second bracket, you don't pay that rate on all your water. You pay it on the excess from the end of the first tier or the preceding tier. So that is a big change, and it does really make the conversation a lot harder because you've got to assess the change not just from the year-to-year change in rates, which normally would just be a simple calculation, but also a change in tiers, which is going to change where certain customers may land. So really the heart of this conversation was this model that was presented by, in particular, DPS, let's say, the business manager, and a few other people worked on it, finance director, DPS director, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people worked on it. It is posted to the May 14th Budget and Finance meeting. We spent a lot of time on it ourselves in committee. It was presented as the basis for how they came up with these rates. And as you might expect, there are a number of assumptions and things that had to be done, as would be the case with any model. So to give you the proposal, generally speaking, the idea again is to establish these 3 tiers, tinker with what the tiers are a little bit, and then make increases that take you about plus 17% in the water rate. So not the average bill, but the water rate would increase by plus 17, much less on the sewer. And I'm going to give you the broad contours, make some smaller adjustments to the quarterly service charge, which residents would know as the flat fee basically that shows up on each quarterly bill. And then to try and make this balance into a budget which takes into account, again, more assumptions about potential debt that will be taken on. And this is in theory for FY27 for water, sewer, and then finally to build up some reserves in the water retained earnings fund and the sewer retained earnings fund, in part because we think it's thought to be a good idea, but in part because there's concern the state may not feel that our reserves are sufficient and could potentially take action if they so chose. So where do we go from there? You heard in public comment there's a lot of conversation about the average bill changes. We talked a lot about some of the very high users, like how many would end up in this new Tier 3. The hospital was used as an example. It was computed in committee. Their water bill would increase about 17%, just literally increased 17%. We talked about other potential multifamily buildings. We got into how are they plumbed, how many meters does a specific building had. We asked, and then we got into a conversation about, well, could an owner of a property try and proliferate to more meters in order to lower the sort of collective tiers that they're in? So that was an interesting conversation. We talked about the state and their involvement. That's some sort of a little bit of a new thing this year. At least the way they're presented now, there's general consensus, math is hard, but that the average consumer's bill would go up about 7.5% overall. So the figure you heard in public comment was the consensus figure as well. And the reason the rate can go up plus 17 on water, but you only have a 7% increase only, is because obviously the quarterly service charge is not going up as much, and the sewers gets washed out, so it's a little bit lower on average. Then we had a long, how can you have a conversation about this without getting into the water, just broad water conversations that we're having about some of these large projects, the Indian Hill, the dam, all that stuff, and then trying to set up rates that are in theory supporting or at least moving in that general direction. So we had, again, a couple of long conversations about it. I would say if I were to characterize the conversation, it was no one was excited, but there did seem to feel that there was some obligation to obviously be responsible and prudent with the rates. What that means, that's what you will find out tonight. But it was 2-1 in committee, and the one in this case was opposed, and that was me. So I did my best. I can answer questions. You have other experts better than me.
Questions? Councillor
Go
Z.
ahead. If nobody else wants to talk, go ahead. No, it's all right. Go ahead.
Councillor Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. Chair, if I could just ask a couple of questions that may have come out during the committee discussion. Sure. Two things. One is the getting into the 3 tiers and not 4, which I think was in one of the spreadsheets proposed, and what was the rationale. And the second one, which I didn't hear too much, is the thresholds of categories that were done under the 3 tiers. And I could also ask, I think, but I didn't know if you wanted to summarize in the committee on the results of that.
I think do you want to try and answer that? It might be better to get it directly.
So any reference to 4 tiers was from 1 or 2 years ago when they looked at it, and that was not something that was viable just because it would solely put the Anna Jakes Hospital in tier 4 and put an undue burden on them. So we did not even discuss a 4th tier this year, and we only looked at 3-tier models.
Thank you, that's helpful. And then the thresholds, I guess, is the other.
So the thresholds in working
2
with
versus 3, I guess, for that first.
Yeah, so in working with the DPS business manager, we just wanted to make sure that we had a better spread or more equitable spread of how many accounts were in each of the tiers. So that way, no tier was unduly burdened with the other ones, and it was really the debate of like, okay, you're really heavy water users, people that fill up their pool and, water their lawn and or maybe a condo building that's using a single meter for like 6 units versus, your standard family, or as I like to call it, the little old lady who only boils a kettle once a day and flushes her toilet twice, and that's it. So we really tried to balance that in the best way we thought fit, of making sure that the tier 1 users weren't getting an undue burden from being really conserving with their water, but also not putting too much of a burden on tier 3 where, the hospital wouldn't be profitable.
And then, do you know if went from our prior tier, the 2 that we had, was it 50-52 in terms of the equitable?
No, it wasn't.
I would think the majority was probably
The majority
the
was
second.
in tier 1, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, in tier 1?
Mm-hmm.
Under 2,000?
Yeah, under 3,000 was the old tier.
Oh, okay.
The old tier was 3.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions? Councillor Z.
All right, so I'm just going to take you on a little trip because I spent like an inordinate amount of time playing with this. And I want to preface my statement by saying I too regret not saying this in committee. I don't know. I was reading the room. It seemed like there was a reticence but an acceptance of these rates. And my argument for you tonight all is you don't have to accept these rates. There's not a lot of reason to have to, and you don't have to necessarily at all give up any of your concerns about the state, if that's your concern, or the building of, retained earnings, or you feeling you won't be prudent in the setting of the rates. So I live this stuff like spreadsheets all the time, and I'm just going to read you what this spreadsheet says. Before I made any edits to it, it says that we are supposed to raise, and I'm going to focus on water rates, we're supposed to raise the rates. The average customer bill is supposed to go up 13.1% next year. That's just from the sheet, reading directly. I don't have to take my word for it. And then the next 2 years, we're only going to raise the average bill 2.5 and then 1.5. And so that is kind of a crazy prospect that we would have such a curve like this, and then don't go past that, because then you're going to go like this because of the treatment plant starts to hit, and FY29 is Armageddon. Let me just put it to you that way, okay? But I really tried to focus my thoughts on the next 3 years, because beyond that, it's really hard to predict what things are going to look like, and I think that's fair for all parties who have to do this kind of work. So that's the first thing, is that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The only way it would make sense is if you really needed the money. So I want to explore that as my second point. The entire model for FY27 hinges on the water tab in the spreadsheet calling for the Lower Artichoke Dam, a $10 million project, being completed and bonded in FY27. We're already in FY27. So in the next 11 months, the Lower Artichoke Dam will be designed, permitted, and actually get bond approval authorization and go out to bond and then be collected. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. It wasn't even contemplated in the budget that we just passed. So it's in the spreadsheet, but it doesn't exist in the budget. So there's a the explanation was it could support that. But that's not good enough for a ratepayer that we could support more debt. If we're not going to support it, and I just came from the water ad hoc on which I sit, and I'm not hearing the Lower Artichoke is going to happen in the next year, that no one rationally believes that. So you can't hold on to that. The next argument is you need to raise the rates in order to raise the retained earnings. This spreadsheet calls for an increase of $250,000 to the retained earnings. I don't dispute that. I think we have rated the retained earnings, maybe a little bit too much, but we had to do what we had to do. So we leave the $250,000 intact. So I want people to take comfort. I said in committee, I'll say it here, I've never heard of the state setting anybody's rates. I can find no evidence of that happening, but let's accept that it's a risk at face value, so we leave the $250,000. I only have a few more points. On the argument of equity, I don't understand the use of the word equity in this case. If you look at the DPS presentation, their own spreadsheet shows that 90% of the cost in water and sewer are fixed costs, meaning if we operated the city and we pumped 0 gallons of water, we would still have 90% of the cost, because there are human beings that sit in an office, there are infrastructure that has to be run, and whether you turn on your faucet yourself individually and take 1 gallon or 100,000 gallons, that infrastructure has to live. And so the chart they show shows 90% fixed, 10% variable cost, and then the cost to the ratepayer is the flip. It's 90% variable, meaning you're really hitting the high users, but they're not actually causing most of the cost. Actually, all of us have a huge impact on the cost of having a system that's ready to serve. So when you want to boil that tea, the water comes out of the tap. So it's not equitable. And my concern in particular about the 3-tier model is if you make third tier and you make it super expensive, which by the way, the third tier, forget about the average for a second, the third tier is a huge jump. The hospital getting a 17%, you're going to have fewer tier 3 users over time. And what's going to happen is it's going to get very expensive, the same way that conservation efforts are really helpful to preserve water, but they make it much more expensive because you still have to carry that 90% of cost. So what would be, the question I was asked in committee that I went home and was very regretful that I did not answer in committee is, so what do you think? What could be better? So I leave you with this thought. One is the water budget that we passed right here, went up 0.88%. It was basically flat. The sewer budget went up 2.5%. So a modest recommendation would be to pull back the 17% increase on water and go to plus 10% instead, which is still, by the way, a very large, in my opinion, increase. But it would take you to $8.28 for Tier 1, $10.35 for Tier 2, and I would propose that we strike Tier 3. I made my argument for why I don't think a third tier actually makes sense, and in the long run, in the short run, it will provide a sugar high. In the long run, it will really hurt, and that 2,000 to 3,000 is an important distinction. So it's not the same Tier 1 that it was before. Councillor Khan was getting at that, I think, indirectly in her questions. It's not the same Tier 1, and that's an important distinction. That will still allow you to build your $250,000 of retained earnings. It will actually exceed that. It doesn't quite zero out the Lower Artichoke Dam, which is in the budget as a $975,000 debt service. So it's still pretty aggressive. And then what you can do from there is do another 10% next year if you need it, another 10%. You get more time for the projects to materialize, and you don't have to explain to people that you're taking their money, but you actually don't really know what you're going to do with it yet, and putting it in the bank. The sewer, I believe, can handle a much more modest increase because we're not as hot on projects there. So I would have proposed, and this one is interesting, I don't want to hide from it, but getting rid of Tier 3 means you have to compact, money has to go somewhere. So you'd have 1159 for Tier 1 and 1379 for Tier 2, striking Tier 3. This is a more even-keeled approach. It's more defensible. And remember, I'm proposing plus 10% and plus 5%, and the budget's changed 0.88, less than 1, and 2.5. So the safety margin is considerable. That is my amendment.
Is there a second on the amendment?
Second.
Further discussion on the amendments? Councillor Hall.
So I can support this amendment. I do support the rates as proposed, as I did in committee. I understand that past practice has been to raise the rates minimally to cover expenses. But we're in a different place right now. We've all agreed by unanimously passing the CIP that we're prioritizing the significant investment in our water infrastructure. It's coming, whether it's this year or the following year, it's coming. And I don't think we'd be responsible if we weren't increasing our retained earnings in order to pay for that. Not just to make the bond payments, but it's also, it puts us in good stead with the state in terms of, it makes us more attractive for getting grants or low interest loans. If we don't show that we're serious about paying for these projects, it's going to be harder for us to get those extra funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Further, Councillor Smith.
So my one challenge with the proposal is that I think I would need time to sit with the numbers to see what the retained earnings would look like, to kind of understand what this would mean in terms of our financial outlook. Kind of just coming out of the ad hoc, we had a lot of conversation on how far can we get in terms of progressing these projects into design based on the current rates as proposed or alternatives. And it's hard to kind of compare those things with another proposal that we don't have a spreadsheet to kind of look in and review. So I think one thing that we're contemplating in the ad hoc is, as well as with the current rates and the current forecast, how far down can we go in terms of progressing all of these projects into 30% design? And then again, using that as an opportunity to revisit if we want to take these from 30 to 100%. So even if we took the dam project out of the list, there's still roughly $2.5 million worth of project cost at FY27. It's not money that's going to go to waste. It'll be progressing all of these projects into design. We already know of a study that needs to happen on the water treatment facility that we're progressing forward. So I think regardless of where we stand on the rates, I think there is no argument that we don't need retained earnings to progress any one of these projects on the list.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Further discussion? Councillor Khan.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I do, I think I'll speak to the three tiers. Is there an amendment to anything? Yes, the chair's amendment on the floor. I was trying to think of what you were proposing, but I guess more broadly, I would ask Councillor Z, the impact of what you're proposing to next year's rate setting and the year after. So if you have those numbers or that percentage, I would be curious to hear that, knowing what is going to be the next philosophy we're looking at, if it's mapping to what we're looking at this year for fiscal year 2027. Does that make sense what I asked? Or yeah.
I'll do my best. I would say rather than, so the short answer is rather than doing plus 17% on the rate, and then, basically nothing in years 2 and 3. Think about taking the 3 years and splitting them more evenly over the 3 years. That's the shortest, it's not a numerical answer, but that's effectively what it is. And I just want to retort on one other thing, which is that the projects that are being discussed are not there. They're not there yet. They weren't contemplated in the budget. When you have a project, then I think you have grounds to ask the ratepayers to pay. And we're already getting enough excess for retained earnings, so that's covered. So that's the point I've been trying to say, is you can have your cake and eat it too here. And a couple of weeks ago on a different meeting, Councillor Harmon said, we haven't raised the rates big, but then I reminded that we have raised the rates big one year and all the money's gone. I don't know where it went. So we tend to spend it if we have it, and what we need to do is really get accountability and focus down the projects, and then we say, okay, yeah, we're going to lean into this project or into this design or into this study, and we can get the funds. So.
Can I, oh, sorry.
So you can follow up, Councillor Hahn?
Yeah, I'll
Okay, so Councillor Chalk.
Thanks. I do understand the impulse to smooth out this year's rate increase. In the packet, I'm looking at the page after this of water potential debt. If you scroll down a little bit, it has blue, green, and yellow. And I understand that Councillor Zede is talking about, FY27, we have a pretty hefty rate increase that we are asked, we are being asked to approve this evening, and I do support this. And then we see in FY28 and 29 a much smaller increase. And I understand the impulse to say, why don't we smooth this increase out by making it a little bit less in 27 and a little bit more in 28 and 29. That only makes sense to me if we insist on looking at only the next 3 years. But we have been presented here with a 5-year look at the rates. And what we see at the blue arrow at FY 2030 is a massive increase, because that is when we expect to pay for the water treatment facility. And I believe, as Councillor Hall was getting at, that increase, that hockey stick going up, we know these projects are coming, whether it's FY 30, or 31, it is coming. And that's the increase that is potentially so much more devastating to our ratepayers than this year's. So I agree, I would like to see FY 28 and 29 smoothed out, but my thinking is that we should be doing that by taking, this massive amount in 2030 and backfilling it into 28 and 29, not sort of letting ourselves off the hook for 2027. It is a difficult decision to make. It will hit people in their wallets, and yet it will be so much worse 4 years from now if we don't do this tonight. So I do support this as it is presented to us, and I hope that we can get this done.
All right, so who else? Councillor Khan?
Yes. So I think, again, amendment was also to eliminate one of the tiers, right? So I'm going to speak to that a little bit as well. I do like the proposal with the 3 tiers, and I've always been kind of an advocate for that for maybe like last 4 or 5 years, and largely because this is an area where there is some control on water usage. Granted, when you get to high uses, like some of the commercial ones all will come into that 3rd tier, but for me, it's not a debate to go back to the 2-tier, because it is something it's going to really help us, let's just say that, as we move ahead in trying, especially when we're funding these projects. So with that, I am a little bit more compelled, again, it's by user consumption and user behavior. There are ways that residents are going to have to learn or adapt in usage. And to me, I'm open to the conversation here with my colleagues. In terms of how do you get that before 2030, where there's such an increase? Do we smooth it out now? Not smooth it out, sorry. Do we make it seem very high percent increase every year now, the expectation, or do we do one big hit now and then have it taper? For me, from a behavior change and to really understand where we're oftentimes driven by if you have to pay more for something, I personally do like a more smoother way for people to be adapting to the change. And I'll leave it at that, but I am curious to hear what other things on that.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Further conversation? Councillor Delay?
So I think one of the things that was always challenging for me in going from the 2 tiers to the 3 tiers was to understand the argument about why 3 tiers and also why the cutoffs that were chosen for those tiers. And while the argument was made that it was more equitable, it doesn't really, to me, feel like it's an equity conversation. It's really just distributing the current use amongst 3 tiers. So, you know, I agree and would love to see a system that is more equitable. I just don't know that this is actually more equitable. And so I feel like we're rushing to jump into a new tier system that hasn't proven or been demonstrated to actually show that it's more equitable. So I get concerned about residents not understanding why we go to 3 tiers. Also, in terms of the funding, and you know, I think what Councillor Zeid has put forward achieves the same objective of $250,000 in retained earnings that the original model, and also, I think it also has, what would you say, like $500,000 or so still for the Lower Artichoke Dam, which, if we believe that's not going to happen, and I don't see how it's possible it can happen in '27, that's another $500,000 that's going to go to retained earnings. So it's going to be $750,000 to retained earnings to protect that retained earnings position. So I think if you look at the spreadsheet and you use this model to adjust the rates, you still achieve the primary objective of retained earnings, and you do it with a little bit more modest increase. Still an increase to ratepayers, but it's a little bit more modest of an increase.
Further discussion? Anyone else who has not spoken yet? All right, Councillor Zeid.
Just 2 points. One is I just want to talk about the 3rd tier. People should really think about who is the 3rd tier. The 3rd tier is commercial, which I don't know that there's a lot of concern for them. I'm not sure whether that's fair or not, but I know that when we asked about, you know, who are the top 10 users in the city, it was baking was one, hospital was one, that sort of thing. But the other big one is multifamilies that don't have, you know, an infinite number of meters and cannot just go run in and add 80 meters into a building to try and access tier 1. So is that what you want? I mean, is that the right solution to, I'm not even sure what the problem is that tier 3 solves. And just to show you that I don't want it to sound rude. It's not, what's the right way to say it? It's not that it's made up. It's just that, but there's an arbitrariness to any model. And in this model, the way that they divided people into was just they just said, let's just put 40% in tier 1. You can actually go in the spreadsheet. Those are hard-coded numbers. They're not formulas, meaning somebody sat down and said, I think 40% should be in tier 1, 27% should be in tier 2, and 35% should be in tier 3. I'm not disputing that that's not allowed, but it's an assumption, so I'm entitled to make assumptions too. And I said, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And, you know, they do have usage data and they've tried to do it, but you could have made tier 1, you could have left tier 1 at 3,000 cubic feet and played with the model. You could have made tier 1 only 1,000 cubic feet and said we only really want the lowest users to be in there. My point is that I really believe that the average change to a household will be more impactful than you think, because more people will get pushed up at least partially into tier 2 because of the $2,000 to $3,000 delta change, and then that tier 3 is just going to be a complete blowout for anybody who's in tier 3. And the people who are teetering on tier 3, that won't be the end of the world for them, but the users that are kind of heavily using past tier 3 are going to get really bludgeoned, because if you look, I didn't even calculate those, but it's kind of astronomical increases.
Further discussion. Councillor Smith.
I rest on that.
So I appreciate it being pointed out that the retained earnings would be at a similar level with the 2-tier versus the 3-tier. I do think there is value with the 3rd tier in terms of incentivizing like conservation. I do want to remind folks that we are at a capacity constraint for water, and so our new growth is limited as a result of that. So conservation can achieve many things in addition to water conservation. So I think one way to achieve that is with tier 3. I will agree that the whole equity argument didn't really resonate with me, but in terms of it, like identifying a way to incentivize water conservation, identify a starting point for us to redistribute, I will say we're setting this for the current year. It can be revisited, it can be refined. I think it was said pretty openly that second and third year was a placeholder at best, and the 1.5% and 2.5% are likely not where we'll sit, and it's something the Water and Sewer Commission wants to dig into. I think the one challenge, again, I'll just raise it. I would need more time to go through the counter proposal before I could support it. I've certainly had time with this proposal. There's no model that's going to be perfect, but I think it does distribute it across users. Unfortunately, I don't have a counter proposal, so I am accepting some of the due diligence that the Water and Sewer Commission and administration had put together.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Nicotic.
So I also support going to 3 tiers. I supported it when it was discussed last year, although I wasn't on the council, because of the water conservation arguments. But I also agree with Councillor Medina Smith. If you went to committee meetings, there was a lot of time spent on this, and there was a spreadsheet that the finance director provided where you could change things. And I had really, at the last committee meeting, hoped to hear and see how everything changed during that committee meeting. So I understand that it's complex and it's important to people what we pay for water and sewer. So my suggestion might be that we not vote at all on this tonight if the Budget and Finance Committee wants to put it back in committee, so that these proposals can be presented in committee and there's more time for councilors to consider them.
Thank you, Councillor Nicotic. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm supportive of the 3-tier structure and the proposal as it's made. There's a point where we're going to have to pay for some of these larger projects, and the $60 million water treatment facility, that's the dam that we aren't going to be able to avoid. The dam we can avoid for a bit, and I think that the ad hoc will help us with the sequencing, but I mean the bottom line is either we start to put that money aside now, or we delay it or smooth it out, but it's either going to be a smooth, steep climb, or it's going to be a steep climb this year and a little bit less the next couple of years. And again, we vote on this every year, so just because they projected these hypotheticals doesn't mean we have to do that next year. But I mean, I think they are right around the corner. I'd rather be in the position where we've started to put aside the money rather than in 2 years. Gee, I wish we had bumped it up a little bit more a couple of years ago. Believe me, they'll be squawking on many households, including mine, and that dropping of tier 2 to 1,000 cubic feet less. Yeah, that's definitely going to hit more people. The tier 3 increase, the difference between tier 2 and tier 3 is 1106 for tier 2 and 1149 for tier 3, and if that hits some people, that's not such, the difference between tier 1 and tier 2 is the big differential, but it does help with encouraging less watering of our lawns, and those that don't have pools may want to consider not getting a pool. But I think, again, it's going to be painful one way or the other, year to year, and I'm good with doing it this way.
All right, so we still have the amendment on the floor is to go back to the 2-tier system with what Councillor Zeig was requesting. So we should probably vote on that. All those in favor of the amendment as requested by Councillor Zeig? Roll call?
Sure. Councillor Smith?
No.
Councillor Track?
No.
Councillor Zeid?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
No.
Councillor Cameron?
No.
Councillor July?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
No.
Councillor Harmon?
No.
Councillor Khan?
No.
Councillor Nicotic?
No.
Councillor Shan?
No.
2 yes, 9 no, motion fails.
So what we have on the floor is what we have in the packet, which is Order 851, the 3-rate structure as noted. Discussion on that. Councillor Zeid, Councillor And then Councilor Desai.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to offer to everybody that if this is just full transparency, everybody realizes that when we vote to set these rates, this rate is based on funding $975,000 in debt service in '27 for the Lower Artichoke Dam. And if we don't believe that that's going to happen, which I think many of us don't, we're agreeing to allow another $975,000 plus $250 to go into retained earnings. So I just want everybody to know that that's what we're approving at this rate, $1.2 million, give or take, to go into retained earnings.
Thank you, Councilor Delay. Councilor Z, did you want to speak?
I'll yield to Councilor Harmon for the moment. Thanks.
I haven't talked on this, and I'll just sort of respond to the previous comment from Councilor Delay. I think I just add my voice to the group of folks who think we got to start putting money in the savings account. And if we don't need the money this year, we have very clear indications that we will need large sums of money for our water system. I kind of want to go back and replay the conversation we were having a couple hours ago about a letter to another community who's facing infrastructure. And so I want to be doing what we can proactively to put ourselves in a position to address these things before they're failures. And I think it's being studied, and appreciate the ad hoc, the old ad hoc. But I believe that this has been thoroughly vetted. If the chair wants to take it back into budget to continue that conversation and alternatives, then that is up to the chair. But if we're voting on this tonight, I have every reason to support it.
Thank you, Councilor Harmon. Councilor Khan, and then Councilor Z.
Oh, I think,
No worries.
well, I just had a question on that. So I think I said, for me, 3 tiers are attractive. If the model and we took out, I get it. Like, so if we move the amount for the Lower Artichoke Dam, right? Is that what we were talking about, the 935,000? 75 to the next year. What does that do to the 3 tiers and the amount set? Did anyone calculate that out? Or if there's no appetite to do that, then I'm fine with passing these. But because it was said, I just wanted to ask, is there any impact on how it looks for this year and then the consequent years? That's really what I'm looking at here.
Councilor Z.
Yeah, to answer that question, I mean, you can open the spreadsheet and simply go to the water debt table and zero the 975, and you'll find that basically rates don't need to change. They go from 753 to 761 per 100 cubic feet in Tier 1. This is in the 3-tier model now. And you always use the smell test to verify, right? And as I told you, the water budget went up by 0.88%. So it stands to reason that absent a large new expenditure that wasn't contemplated in the budget, that it would be reasonably flat. So it basically goes up 8 cents. So it's like 1%, which makes, again, perfect sense. And if you wanted to keep something in the Lower Artichoke Dam, you could. I think what was maybe lost is the proposal was very modest, actually more modest than it may have seemed, but such is life. So I don't want to cut you off if you want to ask more. So, I'm going to stay true to my beliefs, which are to vote no on these rates. I do think that a couple things. One is you don't have a right to take the money unless you're ready to use it. This has actually been a push-pull for the last many years where you build up money. In fact, like Harbor Master, we say, wow, the retained earnings are too high. We need them to draw those down because they continue to take fees. And remember, these are not money-making, profit-making operations. So yes, we have a reasonable outlook that shows us that we may need to spend in the future, but it's an outlook. And so there's got to be some moderation. And the fact that you build a model based on a project that no one believes is going to happen in FY27 doesn't really seem credible to me. That's number one. Number two is one of my biggest things is the 3rd tier. I just really think people are going to regret that in the long term. It's a great sugar high. You spread the rate out. You really sack the high users, high in air quotes. They're going to pay, and it will feel good, and then there'll be less and less, and you say, well, that's good. It's conservation. But what will really happen is they'll start to modify, people will start to fall into other tiers, and then the rate's going to go up over time. So I think when you look at the long-term health of the system, it's probably not good. The last thing is, with due respect to my colleagues, I must protest that if you buy into this model for this year, then you have to buy into it for the future years. So that means ratepayers should expect a basically 0 year next year. That's only reasonable. How can you have it both ways? You can say, well, I buy into the model now, I like it, it makes sense, I want to bank the money, don't worry about the Lower Artichoke Dam, and then next year and the year after show basically flat increases, but don't worry, we'll edit that. I don't think that's fair. So, you know, we'll be here next year, this council, and we'll be saying, remember last year, and I hope that if you bought into the model, you like the theory of it, you got to be consistent. I yield.
Councillor Nicotich.
So I agree with Councillor Khan. I think there is a conversation that could be had, and maybe we could have already had it if you don't end the three-tier model. So how do you even out rates in the three-tier model? And there could be a proposal for that, and I don't hear that happening, so it's kind of confusing to me if there's something better that we could do, but there's no proposal for what it is.
Further questions? Seeing no hands. Roll call vote on Order 851.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track?
Yes.
Councillor Zede?
No.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delay?
No.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nicotich?
Yes.
Councillor Shan?
Yes.
9 yes, 2 no, motion passes.
I think that's it for budget tonight. We had dreams of canceling Thursday's meeting. The dreams are dead. We will meet on Thursday, but we'll try and shoot again for canceling our meeting in August if we can get away with it. We'll be taking up the couple grants and what have you that came in, and that's it. Thank you.
Community Services.
Thank you. Motion to approve appointment 675, Paul Bushy to the Council on Aging.
Second?
Thank you. We met in committee on the 29th with Mr. Bushy, and I believe Clerk Sullivan told me that the correct date, which is in our packet, is 5/31/29. In the initial appointment, it was incorrectly dated. These are, just to remind myself and other folks, there are 11 appointees to the Council on Aging. They serve a 3-year term. They can serve no more than 3 consecutive terms, and their 3-year term is supposed to end on May 31st of each year, and that's gotten smoothed out. So this would be Mr. Bushy's second term. He's been involved for a long time. We did approve this 3-0 in committee. He spent 41 years at the Social Security Administration, and he's worked very closely in Newburyport as a retiree, supporting staff that are helping our senior citizens get on Social Security benefits, whether that's Social Security disability or retirement. We talked a little bit about the change in support with the change in staffing that the administration proposed and was approved in the budget. He thinks that Trish, who'll be coming on, would be helpful. He was a big fan and worked closely with Ann Freeman, who's no longer with the Council on Aging. Paul also was the 2022 Yankee Homecoming chair. Could have used him tonight. He could have filled in a little bit, given us a little insight. And he's also the president of the Link House Board of Directors. So he's really very, very community-oriented. Councillor Track asked what he would do if he had a magic wand. He talked about looking, to help seniors understand affordability, Medicare, providing extra help there, and also looking at when the building is used after hours, if some of the costs and utility costs could be borne by the people that are doing the renting or the entities that are doing the renting. Councillor Hall asked about outreach, and we did talk about that position that Ann Freeman held. So it was, I think, just really, kind of inspiring. He's really quite a guy, and I think he'd be a great continuing on the Council on Aging. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Counselor Track?
Yes.
Counselor Z?
Yes.
Counselor Callahan?
Yes.
Counselor Cameron?
Yes.
Counselor Delai?
Yes.
Counselor Hall?
Yes.
Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Nikotich?
Yes.
Counselor Shan?
Yes.
11 yes, motion passes.
Nothing else to report. We will be canceling our next meeting. Thank you all.
All right, from general government, motion to receive and file communications 714.
Second.
Second.
This is the city clerk update from third quarter. We had a chat with Clerk Sullivan regarding the typical items going to the clerk's office, status quo for Q2, Q3, excuse me. I think the one thing that she did make mention of is the fact that we are fully staffed in the clerk's office now. We have two great new admin too, so if y'all have not had a chance to introduce yourself to Emma and Calvin, please do so. Great adds to the office. So, any questions? All right, all those in favor of receiving and filing communication 714, say aye, please. Aye. All right, order 856, motion to approve. This is the animal control intermunicipal agreement for fiscal year 27. It is identical except for the date in the municipal agreement we have with Newbury. We had a discussion about how they operate. I think the one thing that will change next year maybe might be the vehicle from Newbury. That's the only thing that's listed. That's a 2021 F-110. We'll see if it makes it another year. Also, the only reason it was in general government this year is because the fees didn't change. Last year it was in budget and finance. The fee schedule did stay the same this year. So with that, we have voted to approve 3-0 in committee. So with that, any questions? All right, all those in favor of approving order 856, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We will meet on Thursday to go through the item that came in tonight, the poll workers piece, 5:30 likely, since it'll be a quick meeting, and then budget and finance will be at 6 o'clock. Okay. All right, so that's our next general government meeting. So license and permits. Councilor Delai.
Okay, motion to approve application 331.
Second.
Thank you. This application is for the 12th Annual Harborside Half Marathon and 5K. That's Sunday, November 8th. The race is being run by Calibrate Events. The event organizers anticipate approximately 2,300 participants. The half marathon begins at 9, the 5K at 9:15. Both races begin on Parker Street and end at Cashman Park. The Newbury streets that will be impacted for the half marathon in particular include Parker Street, Mullican Way, Malcolm Hoyt Drive, Scotland Road, Hale Street, Turkey Hill, Opportunity Way, Perkins Way, and the Clipper City Rail Trail. There will be no street closures, but there will be a traffic detail to assist at Parker and Mullican. Post-race activities will happen at Cashman Park from the conclusion of the race until about 1:30. The post-race event will include food and beverage, including a beer garden, as well as a DJ with amplified sound on the ball field. The beer garden area will be cordoned off. The parking lot off of Sally Snyder Way will be used for event staging, including portable toilets, a medical tent, dumpster, and staff and volunteer parking. And there will be buses to shuttle participants from Cashman to Parker Street for the start of the race. Parking at Cashman will be impacted throughout the weekend. Just a few spaces, 8 spaces are needed on Friday for the portable toilets, but then another 16 will be used on Saturday for setup, and the entire lot will be unavailable during the race itself on Sunday from 5 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. The Parks Commission has granted their approval. The beer vendors are obtaining permits from the Licensing Commission, and the application was approved 2-0, conditional on receipt of an updated certificate of insurance, as well as the parking plan. The parking plan was received, as I reported out.
Thank you, Councilor Delay. Questions? All right, all those in favor of approving application 331, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
Motion to approve application 336. This is my kind of race, it's a mile. The High Street Mile on August 2nd, 2026 from 9 to 10 a.m. I don't know if that would be long enough for me, but sponsored by the Winner's Circle Running Club. This race has actually been run for over 40 years and is traditionally held the morning of the Yankee Homecoming Parade. The race starts on Ferry Road by the Three Roads intersection and Atkinson Common and ends at Newburyport High School. Approximately 500 people are anticipated. The race day registration begins at 7:30 at Atkinson. There will be portable toilets located along the edge of Atkinson. High Street will be closed from Ferry to the high school during the race, and the application was approved 2-0 by the committee.
Thank you, Councillor July. Discussion. All those in favor of approving application 336, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
And we were going to cancel on the 21st, but we will not cancel on the 21st. I will speak to the Chair Pro Tem, Councilor Medina Smith, about whether you just want to do the Yankee Homecoming or you all also want to take on the application that came in today.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Councillor Delay.
The applicant from earlier tonight emailed during the meeting, said he had a medical incident. He apologized for missing the meeting tonight, but that if it's referred, he will be present.
Okay.
Just a point of order, on the intermunicipal, did we do a roll call?
We did not. Should we have?
I think we should
should have.
have, yeah.
All right, so going back, Order 856, roll call.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track?
Yes.
Councillor Zeeb?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delay?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
8:56, sorry.
The
Oh, yes.
We're just doing a roll call for that. Okay. Councillor Shan?
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Zeeb.
Sorry.
All right, so planning and development.
Thank you. Motion to approve appointment 679, Alan Marquis to the Newburyport Historical Commission.
Second.
Thank you. So this is a reappointment for Mr. Marquis through September of 2029. He joined us at our June 25th meeting, talked about his experience on the Historical Commission over the past 3 years, as well as his professional experience ensuring the rigorous historic standards at Harvard University, how they use the standards they use to maintain their buildings, and making sure that those are adhered to. Talked about finding a balance on the Newburyport Historical Commission that allows for renovations to occur while working to enforce what matters most. He also discussed the expanding newer post-war homes that are now coming under the purview of the Historical Commission and the need to adjust their approach to understand the Commission's role regarding those. He was approved 3-0 coming out of committee.
Thank you, Councillor Harmon. Discussion. Roll call.
Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Track? Yes. Councillor Zeeb?
Yes.
Councillor Callahan?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes.
Councillor Delay?
Yes.
Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Nikotich?
Yes.
Councillor Shan?
Yes.
All right, so just mark your calendars. This Wednesday, we have a joint public hearing that will cover two P&D items. One will be the first introduction of the data center prohibition conversation. The second will be related to our workshops on Ordinance 221, talking about what we've learned, anticipated next steps. We'll have the city solicitor present for that meeting and look forward to gathering input from the planning board, who we have had sort of, for as much time as we've spent on this, we haven't really had a great opportunity to talk to them about it. So that should be a full meeting. I also want to allude to, I mentioned in my earlier comments related to the state budget bill, there are additional provisions in 40A that will require us to adjust our zoning. There are two specific things that I have my eye on, so just look forward to those coming in, and I'll flag them for you as to the sort of what's driving it. It's that the state has now mandated some things. So less urgent, I would say, than the current situation. So plug for the July 22nd Next Story Ave Visioning Forum. At this meeting, we plan to hear from Gamble and Associates, our partner on it. They're going to present some plans and renderings, which is just building off of where we left off in the first forum in May. Now that we've brought in the ordinance as a late file tonight, I just reiterate we do plan to take that up on August 5th with the joint public hearing. And then finally, the next planning and development meeting will be August 12th. We do have an easement at River Valley Charter School we would like to take action on. Removing an easement at Colby Farm will be coming in for the first time. And an amendment to our ordinance defining conservation land. Depending on the discussion Wednesday, we may also need to docket further examination of the data center prohibition. So that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Harmon. Councilor Khan.
Yeah, motion to receive and file communication 710.
Second.
So, as folks know, back in early May, we got the remaining kind of, we actually got the plan for this year's street and sidewalk upgrades that were going to happen. Just to kind of remind folks, Jordy Vining is going to be from the planning office taking on the future, meaning from after 2026, the kind of the plan, like relooking at how we did it before and reassessing the direction. For this particular communication, we did spend some time really talking about the status, why the ones that were selected. We also talked about petitions that were done since this plan came forth. I want to say 4 years ago, there was a process defined where residents can submit a petition, and there were several petitions that were provided that we really did not make the list. So one of the things with administration we talked about was, how do we notify residents who did submit something in terms of letting them know that nothing really did happen from that. So there is a list of petitions that was found by the Chief of Staff, our Chief of Staff, Ben, who saw over time during, I believe at the time it was the first Chief of Staff, I can't even remember his name, but they found in their, kind of in their archive that there is this list. What I think the most interesting thing as we were talking about the plan is that I believe there are still folks doing petitions or have an understanding of that they could still talk to their neighbors, and if they get a signatures, they will get on the list. So we're being very thoughtful. I think, I don't know if all of you, but I've been getting emails from people asking, what about this street or this street? So one of the things that I'm hoping as our committee is embarking on a broader conversation, this is being received and filed because we feel like this has a very specific focus, which is this year, and I believe we really exhausted the conversation around it. But there are a couple of other communications that's looking at how does our body, the City Council committee members, it is a committee of the whole item, that how could we help inform the plan that's being put forth together. And Jordy Vining's been fantastic, coming to almost every meeting when he's available to come to. So in terms of this matter, though, we really do feel like we got what we wanted. The one thing that's still there is Ken Federal Street. I was going to ask the mayor when he gave his update, is there still enough to do Federal Street? Because that was something I would say at every meeting on this we had under public comment. That was something that came up quite a bit. However, we do also recognize that we will see what's left over and know that this is, given that this is public and it's happening right now and will be completed soon, that this was adequate for us to talk, and the ward councillors were able to ask further questions about the work that's being done in their area. So the committee recommended 3-0 to receive and file this.
Thank you, Councilor Khan. Further discussion. Councilor Z.
I just had a couple of comments. I know this has been a volleyball over the years. I'm still on team order. I think this should be an order, not a communication. And it should be approved by the City Council since we have jurisdiction over the public way. I've felt that way for a long time. The second thing is it would be really helpful to get some money into the conversation. I know that's a crossover between budget and public works, but for example, why do we stop at 1.6 million? Broadly speaking, $2 million a year was considered to be like the threshold. We have a bond auth that's been in place for a while. They're mixing that with some of the meals tax money to do sidewalks. Then you've got the Chapter 90 money. So when you really think about $1.6 million of spending, and you figure the meals tax is like $675,000, and then you've got Chapter 90, which has been hovering around about the same. That's like let's call it 1.2. So we're spending 400. Just reminding that we had these long talks about how can we spend more, because we knew, and that was when roads were cheap. Now they're not cheap. Federal Street, I'm sure, falls into the category of it's going to be quite a large project. And the last piece of the money is, it would be really helpful to see last year's list and how much each street actually costs. Residents ask me a lot of the time, well, how much would Federal Street cost? And I give them a number that I've estimated based on, say, watching Plummer Ave, one of these top to bottom streets, and Federal is even bigger. And then I explain to them, I don't know about the infrastructure underneath. I don't know if there would be traffic features that would have an additional cost. I don't know. But one thing I especially don't know is how good are they adhering to these numbers. So when they say, crazy specificity, Cutter's Court, $21,924. So how much did it cost in real life? It would be good when we get the next year's. Anyways, my final thing on this is timing. So we've also thought about this a lot. This came in May. But I think one would argue like next year's plan should come in, ideally in the winter, December, January, February, even pushing it a little bit. But if you really want to have time to have a conversation, May is basically the beginning of construction season. And this is one of the trade-offs to when they have the auth for the money, they don't have to come back and have the big conversation because they already have the bond authorizations. There's trade-offs to everything. But I think those three things could help strengthen this. And you could have a better, answer resident questions like, well, why isn't Federal Street? And I say, well, I think it's the money, but I'd like to be able to answer with more specificity.
Thank you, Councillor Zede. Councillor Khan.
All excellent points. I actually do. When we would get the plan the first time, and I think our ordinance stated that it needs to be submitted, and I cannot remember, this is why I don't know if it was an order or communication, but that was something that the former council, maybe it was like 2-3 years ago, that was the intent, that there would be a public-facing document and that we would approve it. So I am completely, a few things we could do here. I especially like the cost thing, which was actually part of what we're going to be talking about with the overall plan as we go forward, one of the things we talked about is being able to see what the past years were with costs and then see how that influences and how do we do future planning around that. So one of the things I will suggest, because we are, I'm open to the idea of keeping this in committee and getting the last column, which is the actual, hold on to it. But more than anything, I know when we do the plan, we really just get the streets. Normally, it's at the end that we get those final numbers. So what I see the final numbers helping inform future planning. So maybe what we could best do is if we want to change to an order, I don't know if we could do that, but I do actually like the idea that this does come in as an order as it did before, I want to say years ago, in fall to tell us this is the plan. The one other thing that I think the point that was brought up by Councillor Zede was the, where was it? Oh, the costs and expenditure of money. We were lucky to also have many members of Livable Streets in attendance. And one of the things that was emphasized is if you are touching a street, do it right. Don't just do the concept that I have this much money left, what else can I do around the city? Because we are missing opportunities for other types of, pedestrian safety measures being also updated at the same time. So if you're going to be addressing it, do it complete, but don't just then do ad hoc, like, okay, we did it and we just did the street paving, and then you leave out all the other aspects of it untouched. So that really resonated with me in terms of, having an amount of money to spend and then seeing that we have to drive it down to zero. So that is something that's going to be continuing as we talk about the planning for future. Like, what is the consideration? What do you do when you have some money left over? How does it move ahead to next year's areas that need to be addressed? So anyways, I just wanted to answer those points. So what I will do is I'm actually going to keep this as a receive and file. But no, this was a little unusual this time around. I will say it came late, and I think, we're very grateful we had this because the committee definitely talked through this and learned a little bit from the DPS director about their thought process. We actually had I don't know if we had to edit this. I think it was an extension around the corner for Goldsmith in finishing it, so we really didn't need to edit anything here for that. But in the fall, I think that will be in order, and I'll make sure it comes in that way. So for this, though, I think the receive and file, if everyone else is okay with that, I'd like to remove this from the docket and receive and file.
Thank you. All good points made. Further questions? Councillor Smith.
I'll just make one quick point. So I know we talked a little bit about the future 5-year streets and sidewalk plan in the plan, but I think the other thing that we were remiss not to discuss is that the next 5 years may not be that 2.0 plan. Next year might be a trade-off between Federal Street and everything else. And so I think that's going to be more of an administrative call or discussion, and so I think we need to have a conversation sooner than later. I think it should happen well before the winter, so we can discuss what the trade-offs are there. But I don't think we're going to go to the revised prioritization plan until after that discussion is had.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Further discussion? All right, all those in favor of receiving and filing Communication 710, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Councillor Khan.
Yes, so I just want to, and thank you, I want to acknowledge Councillor Smith's points, a good one here. Spreadle Street is going to definitely be on everyone's radar to talk about, and I do want to give some dates of future meetings for the committee. August 17th. So first, more importantly, our meeting that was slated for next week on Monday, we're canceling. July 20th is going to be canceled. So that means our next PWNS committee meeting will be, it's a committee of the whole, and it's all items we have regarding Coffin Street. But more importantly, the order that we have before us, which is Order 850, Coffin Street status. I want to make sure everyone has that on their radar. I do want you to know Attorney Mina will be there, and if folks have any questions that they would like to send over to me to funnel to the attorney in advance, please do so. I did get some emails from some councilors who had raised things early on, but if there's anything else too, please, anything we could get in advance from a planning perspective. We also had an item sent today, which was comment from Fire Chief. So that is August 13th at 6 p.m. And I do also want folks to know that Clerk Sullivan is sending letters, I think today, went out to the abutters on Coffin Street regarding and notifying of this date and this conversation. In addition to Coffin Street, that will take out like 8 items from committee if we resolve it that day. I don't know what's going to happen, but the other items we have will be for our next meeting, which I'm actually creating a new date. It wasn't something we had originally identified, and that's on Monday, August 17th at 6:30 p.m. is to continue the conversation. We'll have, Jordy might have some additional information, but it's around the street and sidewalk plan in light of, I believe, Councillor Smith's point about it's too late to start talking in fall. So this is a good time to get in that conversation about the next steps in planning. Good time to get cost information, other things that I've heard and written down from the conversation today. So that's August 17th at 6:30 p.m. And I believe, not sure if we will also be having poll requests coming in on August 3rd that we'll take up as well on August 17th. But more importantly, just please note August 13th. And I really do hope everyone here can make that meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
All right. So we had our second meeting for the water ad hoc today, just before this meeting. We spent most of the time kind of digging into a 2.0 version of the prioritization matrix. We had a lot of discussion around kind of the initial design costs, what's been spent to date, what % design each project is in, and use that to kind of start the conversation on kind of if or where or how we would re-rank the conversation. And after much debate around looking at the risks and the costs and the CIP scoring, ultimately felt like we could not re-rank them in any kind of objective way, and that we need to leverage a professional to kind of enable us with project sequencing recommendations. So one thing that the DPS Director Turner had brought up is that she is already engaging with a peer reviewer contractor already to see how the Indian Hill raw water line phase 1 and the dam project could be sequenced or looked at holistically together, as are two individual contractors that design these things, and we wanted to make sure we looked at that holistically. Part of the conversation in our committee lended itself to kind of look at the full 5 projects, excluding the Turkey Hill kind of open space, which felt less applicable in this regard, to enable sequencing, and sequencing is really going to help us kind of align on where that line is in terms of funding and what we can afford. We are going to take some next steps in terms of, based on the rates that we approved tonight, kind of understand how far down we can get in terms of moving all of these projects into design, specifically the 30% mark, and if there's any additional money we need to consider for future fiscal years to enable that support. We're also going to look at other communities, such as Ipswich, that recently got some funding from SRF, as a comparison, and see if there are other communities so we can see kind of apples to apples what we could expect as we build our water treatment facility. And then we're going to start digging into some of the project governance aspects, such as seeing where the intermunicipal agreement will become a dependency. That is a conversation that will be progressing in the future, that we're having a first conversation with the city solicitor. And as they have a new town manager, we expect we can progress that conversation. And then basically our next meeting is going to be focused on finances again, and then we'll focus the next 2 on project governance, and the last meeting will be a roundup of the 2 to provide our final recommendation. I hope to see you next week on the 24th at 5. Or next 3 weeks, that's what I meant.
Thank you. Good of the order, reminding folks, well, Councilor Cameron.
Besides wishing the council president a happy birthday, we should also wish Councilor Smith a happy birthday Sunday.
Okay.
And thousands of people will be coming to Newburyport to wish her a happy birthday and read the Declaration of Independence at Market Square.
Thank you. Reminder, we have our meeting next Thursday. Obviously, we will now have on that agenda approving application 339. Thank you to the license and permitting folks for accommodating that one. The special meeting is the post-mortem on the budget. We will also have another item on our current legal fees, so that will be a second item. If there's something else folks want to hear about from the administration, happy to look at what that agenda can look like. I think it's probably getting pretty full, though. Anyway, please reach out and let me know if there's something else you want to hear about. That's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.